do. I'm the instructional lead for social studies from JCPS. And Vincent and Rebecca, if you don't mind to introduce yourselves. And Molly, I'm going to just let you introduce yourself here too, right, from the get-go, and then we'll jump right into it.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Rebecca Ingram. I'm the instructional coach for social studies.
Hi, and I'm Vincent Tinker. I'm the social studies literacy coach.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Molly Kent with the PD team at the DBQ project. Glad to be here.
All right, so what I'm going to do next is I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and we're going to talk a little bit about why this is going to look a little different than all the other contents when it comes to the virtual option. So let me share my screen here. Make sure that I do the captions. I'm not exactly for sure, Jack, where that caption button is now.
You just go ahead to go to your presentation.
Okay.
And then push present. And then
got it. Now I know where it is. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Okay,
so again, this is a little bit different than what everyone else is doing. Savvis Realize is a resource that will be open for other contents, but not necessarily for social studies. Instead, we're going to be replacing it with two groups. One is the DBQ project, which is why Molly Kent is here with us. We'll be partnering with them so that the work that we do here, its alignment to standards, the racial equity policy, and ultimately our civic vision, right, for social studies can continue down that same path. All the work that we do and we're going to be talking about today can be continued in the future, right? So the idea is that even though this looks a little bit different, we'll be able to fold this straight into our curricular framework so the work that's being done during the virtual setting can continue on in perpetuity in your classroom. The second group that we're going to be looking at, which I'll talk a little bit about, is the Stanford Historical Education Group. We'll be able to leverage some of their resources to be able to help supplement some of the learning. So let's go ahead and dive into this. So the very first place to go is jcpssocialstudies.com. This is our one-stop shop for social studies for the district, and it's going to be where we are housing the virtual option. Once you go to the website, at the very top of the screen, you'll notice here it says virtual option, and you'll be able to click down into the menu and be able to find the resources available in that setting. For us today, we're going to be looking at just as an example of using the 5th grade platform here. At the very top of the platform, you're going to see sort of a note that explains why we're sort of choosing this option and what that option starts to look like. Again, as I mentioned before, we're looking at DBQ project and the Stanford Historical Education Group, and that from this option, this platform, we're going to be providing 3 major elements: resources for the virtual learning, videos for virtual learning, right, and units for the virtual learning. As you guys know, or maybe well-versed in our system, the idea that social studies has a new set of standards that are inquiry-based. That inquiry system has both curricular and instructional implications. Here we're looking at a curricular structure where we're trying to build students up to a compelling question, that's the CQ, so that they can ultimately create some form of argument. That's the summative performance task. We want students to be able to scaffold their knowledge through questions, right? Moving from supporting questions 1, supporting questions 2, and so on. And at the same time, backwards plan from the summative performance task in all of those formative performance tasks, right? As we're building the skills necessary for students to create those robust visual, written, or spoken arguments. To help formative performance tasks, we have organizational tasks. These are places where students can synthesize their ideas as they help sort of build towards that formative performance task. As we know, sources are going to be all along the way inside of social studies. And even though it's a virtual option, and we're also trying to figure out how do we make discussion more meaningful for our students virtually. That ultimately, once we can do this, we can take informed action, right? But right now, we just got to figure out how to do one day at a time. I mentioned before that there's 3 subsections from that main menu. The first here is looking at resources for virtual learning. You'll notice here that these are JCPS teaching tools. You'll notice that a few of the videos there are already there. We're still working on being able to supplement some of those other videos when it comes to helping folks out. Again, these are elements that we think will be beneficial to our teachers. And you'll notice here that one of our newest videos at the very bottom, what does this start to look like? How do I simplify an inquiry-based lesson? I'm always going to go through and take a look at DBQ and how DBQ does it, but we want to provide another example there as well. When it comes to another one of the resources for virtual learning, we have digital support. Our IT3 friends have put together some digital products that you can link into that help you build arguments or look at sort of action tasks or organizational tasks and discussion tasks and so on. And that'll be an ongoing document that we continue to populate. Joining that IT3 document are 2 documents, again, that are linked to our website that are looking at digital resources and other digital PD that might be able to help teachers get up to speed on the inquiry process in particular. The show in town for social studies during the virtual option is the DBQ project. I can't express my thanks enough for the district, on behalf of the district's DBQ, who's opened up their entire online catalog for us for free. And we've been able to partner with them for training, one of which you're going to be getting today, but we're also going to be putting professional learning throughout the rest of the year. This includes both at an elementary level, sort of like I'm just now learning how to teach DBQ, all the way to a much more advanced level. And that'll be a partnership that we're hoping will continue in the years to come. To help support some of that professional learning, we have office hours, which will also be coming soon here, so that if you have any questions, comments, concerns, whatever the case might be about teaching DBQ, you can pull straight into that. As well as videos, including today's video, which will be online, that will help provide some of the support for this. Yeah.
I don't mean to knock you off your game there, but it's one of the more important things that we had talked about as a team is that all of this, while it was designed for not necessarily NTI, but kind of when we go back face-to-face and it's the virtual learning option, but just how important and how strategic you all have been as a team that you can utilize all these resources well after we return to a normal world and a normal schedule for ongoing blended learning options. This is not just something that we're going to be doing from, if we go back face-to-face, from January to May, and that's it. This is going to be ongoing and sustained, and teachers can use these digital resources forever, basically.
Absolutely, yeah. So yes, please don't think that this is only going to be an online option. In fact, folks have reached out to us and said, "Hey, Ryan, Vincent, Rebecca, we've got new standards. What kind of textbooks should we have?" One of the issues that we're finding is that there's not too many textbooks that A, align to our standards, and B, align to racial equity policy. DBQ does that. And so one of the things we've been recommending is to contact DBQ, which as a price point, not that I'm selling for them, I don't get any kickbacks, but the idea here is that this is a fantastic resource that we want to lean into because it helps not only provide a lot of great questions and sources, but we're able to also figure out that literacy component of how do you write a quality answer, an argument to a question. Finally here, the other resource that we're pulling in is the Stanford Historical Education Group. Now, I will say that you'll have to log in. Teachers will have to log into their site in order to access their materials. Please note that I still use my login from whenever I taught at Boyle County, and that the login that you use is just really for them to track information. They don't spam you, they don't do whatever, but basically we do not want students to log into this, right? What I should have mentioned is when it comes to login here, you guys already have access to DBQ. It's through Clever, right? So you can use Clever. We've got a video that sort of shows how to log into that. Amali will go into that a little bit more in detail later on. But we're going to be using Clever to do that. So you can basically embed those elements, as Jack and Russ are going to show in just a second, into your Google Classroom. When it comes to SHAG, you'll have to download the materials from their website after again you sign up for their product, which is again free. We don't want students logging into that. Once you download their products, then you're able to upload that to your Google Classroom and be able to assign it like anything else. So for us on the online option, the virtual option is you're going to be leveraging essentially what you're doing in Google Classroom in order to access these materials. The second element of this are the videos for the virtual learning. We've included some here when it comes to social studies inquiry. These are videos that were produced by our team where you're looking at everything from how do I read the standards, how to prepare for state assessment, because that still might be a thing this year, how do I scaffold inquiry-based learning, and how do I approach an inquiry-based lesson. These are meant to give some back-end understanding of how to go about approaching both the social studies standards, but also how we've approached it in that inquiry-based element. We'll also have some videos, and just so you guys know that this is the one part that's really missing, right? Because the ones I've got highlighted are going to be repopulated from today's session, right? So you'll be able to we're going to carve up today's videos so that you can go back and use the power of pause in order to re-access this information. And finally, our JCPS virtual learning team, right, has all these elements, right, of being able to leverage Google Meets and other synchronous tools, right, for your need. We just put them all in one place just because we thought that might be helpful, right, for teachers to be able to see those. Finally, the third option here is the curriculum itself. What we've tried to do is maintain the integrity of looking towards the standards, but we also know that DBQ and SHAG were meant to be supplemental materials and not necessarily the full force of the entire curriculum. Because of that, we've had to condense some units for a virtual option. So please recognize that this virtual option is different than our regular curriculum frameworks. If you're following those, continue to follow those. But as you guys know, we're still working on being able to build those out. And then typically the timeline on that is it typically takes about 3 years to have a full curriculum built. Technically, this is year 2 for us. But by the end of this year, we're going to have all of elementary finished. Most of the others finished too. So we're going to be a year ahead. At least, knock on wood, that's our plan. Make sure that number 2 here, that you continue to teach the language of the standards. Just because you teach a question and just because you have sources doesn't mean that students are going to be prepared for that state assessment. We have to make sure that we're pulling in the language of the standards, and our team has already gone through, as you're going to see in a second, and aligned every single one of the DBQs and SHAG resources to social studies standards for the state. And finally, inevitably, there's going to be some gaps, maybe in chronology or in just sort of a topic, and you may need to backfill some of those gaps in with very strategic instruction to make sure that students are able to see a clear line of thinking. What does it start to look like? Well, on this, you've got a drop-down menu. So I want to make sure this is super clear, right? We've got this little caret here. It's going to be a drop-down menu. So when you go to click that, what will populate will be a series then of questions. You'll notice that we've done 2 things, actually 3 things. One is that we've sequenced these in a way that we think makes sense. Please note that you can sequence them in whatever you would like to do. You can include or not include. That's up to you, as it always is as a teacher. You'll notice that they're underlined. The SHAG documents go straight to those individual SHAG elements. But again, teachers will have to log in, not students. Only teachers will be logging in and be able to download those materials for their Google Classroom. When it comes to DBQ, not shown here, all of those links just take you straight to Clever, right? Because that's how students are going to be able to access that, as are you as a teacher. The final component of this are the standards. You'll notice that under each of the questions, as it runs throughout the entire virtual option, you'll see that they align to the 5 standards that we typically look at, right, for each lesson within social studies. We see a questioning standard for number 1. We see a geography standard. We see an economic standard. Those are the 2 disciplinary standards. And we see using evidence and communicating conclusions, right? So what we try to do with these specifically the inquiries, those are going to populate quite a bit. So you're going to see a lot of redundancies. That is intentional because it takes a long time to be able to develop those inquiry skills as a process. So that's pretty much from soup to nuts, right, in our understanding. And Jack, I'm going to turn it over to you, but I'm happy to continue to advance the slides. But I do know that whenever you guys do your live demo, that I will have to stop sharing my screen. So I'll do that whenever you tell me to.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. Again, that's an impressive amount of work that you and Vincent and Rebecca have been working on. That site the website looks amazing. It's going to be such an important resource for all the social studies teachers in JCPS. I think we're just going to go straight into Google Classroom now and show them oh, no, we're going to show.
Yeah, we can go back a slide, Ryan. Yeah, so you might have a question. How do I get to DBQ? And Amali's going to talk more about this a little bit later, but just to kind of give you a taste, if you could go to the next slide, Ryan, you're going to access DBQ by going to Clever. You've got so many resources in Clever, and DBQ is one of them. When you click on that JCPS Quick Links, it's going to take you to that Clever dropdown, and you're going to click on the district page. You will see a red tile with DBQ. You select that from district applications. When you click on that DBQ, if this is the first time you've accessed DBQ, you will see the terms of use, and you'll have to accept those terms of use, of course, review them. You want to do that. And then after that, you'll see classes and assignments, and that is where you will create your class. And you'll have a class code, and then you'll go into Google Classroom. You can share that class code through Google Classroom. And so that takes us to our live demo now that Jack's going to take us through.
Yep. Thanks, Russ, for that reminder. And Amali's going to go over that in a little bit more detail just in a few minutes. I'm going to share my screen and just kind of show you all. Hopefully this is the right one. I believe it is. So as Ryan pointed out, the two major resources that folks are going to be using for this are either SHAG, the Stanford Historical Education Group, I think if I got that right, and DBQ. So Russ and I kind of were filling out a Google Classroom on how teachers might post that kind of information for their students. And so this is what we kind of came up with. So in the stream view, we said, all right, in Unit 3, which is we kind of guessed would be this week, it just shows that we're going to be talking about the Aztec, Inca, Maya empires, but it's going to be focused on DBQ. And since the kids will be using DBQ for that Unit 3 primarily, or at least it starts out with DBQ, we just gave them instructions, pretty much like Russ just demoed, that you're going to go through Clever and log in. The student will log into DBQ, and that's where they're going to be working from primarily for that first couple of supporting questions for Unit 3. And it just has those links, the Clever login link and a short video that I'm pretty sure Vincent made about logging into the DBQ project. So they finish all that up in DBQ, and then in a couple of weeks are ready to move on to Unit 4. And Unit 4 starts out with a SHAG document. So this is the instructions that we gave students for SHAG, and it's going to say, now we're dealing with a new question which focuses on the Black Death. It's with SHAG. So in this case, we're not going to be using DBQ to start out with. So we tell the students that they need to really pay attention to what is happening in Google Classroom. So with Unit 4, you're going to be pulling in all those resources that Ryan was telling you about, like SHAG has PowerPoints and they have the primary sources and lots of other great resources that you as a teacher need to get that moved over. So let's go take a look at the classwork area, and it makes a little bit more sense. So here I have that Unit 4 area that I've organized by week, and I've got the directions, which are pretty much what I just showed you in the stream, but I've pulled over one of their PowerPoints and then converted it over to Google Slides. So I just assigned that out to all the kids for some background information. And then I started pulling over the two of the, I think there may have been 4 or 6 documents there, but I just literally, when you get into SHAG and log in, it downloads as a PDF, And all I did was copy from the PDF and paste it into a Google Doc. And I did that so that the students could mark up and make comments, and you could make comments. You could use all those tools from Google for an analysis of that primary document. So that's just kind of how Russ and I thought about using both SHAG and DBQ and
So,
do that in classroom. Yes,
So,
sir.
Jack, correct me if I'm wrong here, but so an important distinction would be DBQ is more of a classroom environment, right? So people going to go to DBQ and they can access assignments there and whatnot. SHAG is more of a resource for the teacher to find documents and to post in the Google Classroom, correct?
Yeah, so I think that's pretty accurate. I mean, one of the things that let me go back over here. One of the items that we've discussed on the team is what's a platform and what's content, and DBQ, and Amali, you can join in, and Ryan as well. DBQ is both, right? It has a platform in itself and it has all the resources, versus SHAG, which is where your content is, and you're going to pull that over to Google Classroom. But the distinction for everybody is that we still want the main platform for teachers to be Google Classroom, because even as rich as DBQ is, you may need to supplement somehow, and you may need to pull in an extra resource onto your Google Classroom. Would you say that's accurate, Ryan?
Yeah, that's absolutely it. And part of this virtual option is that this doesn't just replace our curricular frameworks, but as folks know, it takes a long time to curate the resources, to vet those out, to ensure alignment as we make those resources accessible. This is really a virtual option that was trying to be built as quickly as possible, right, to be able to meet the demands of returning to in-person school, right, so that we chose these two options for two reasons. DBQ has great support when it comes to writing, as well as already has the sources there for you. SHAG also has those sources, and they have all these instructional materials. So they actually tell you this is how you would do the entire lesson. Those are two elements that we could not provide in the timeline set by the district. So therefore, we created this virtual option. But if you're a teacher and you're like, oh man, I'm still going to be looking for those updates on the curricular framework, absolutely, right? That is 100% your discretion to be able to combine those aspects of the needs for your class. This is an option that is a ready-to-go option off the bat, and we will not make any changes to that virtual option, right? It is just going to be DBQ and SHAG as a way of uploading those onto Google Classroom because they're ready-made for teachers.
Yeah, and one thing I forgot to mention earlier is I kind of glossed over, copying and pasting from SHAG into a Google Doc and converting over some of their PowerPoint. So Russ pointed out that one of the kind of follow-up and supporting videos that we're going to make is trying to show you all how to do that. So just look for some follow-up videos, just smaller 3-4 minute videos on how to do that, either from Russ or myself.
Absolutely, continued support. We're going to be we are flying the ship with you. So thanks, guys.
So Ryan, I think we're going to go back to you. And
that's right. So we have the pleasure of being joined today by Amali Kent, who's from the DBQ project and has been already working with our teachers in the district. I will say this: I was not at the very first training that Amali came down to do with us during my tenure here, but Vincent was. And he said that it was just amazing. Teachers walked out sort of reborn, so to speak, right? And then how they were viewing inquiry-based learning, and specifically the hard task of getting students to dig into primary and secondary sources as a way of constructing, right, cogent arguments built on evidence. And so Amali's going to walk us through the DBQ project online, which is their online version. Now, most folks may have the binders. Well, those binders don't do us a lot of good right now, right? If they're stuck in a building and we can't make copies, right? The best thing I heard during all this whole thing is that I don't have to make any copies, right? And it's true, but we have to make sure that the copy has been replaced by my internet's not working, right? And so Amali's going to walk us through both the platform, which is highly adaptable to your needs, right? You don't want some of the resources that are there, perfect. You can actually remove those. You want to mark up some of the documents in some ways, you can do that too, right? But Amali's also going to talk about how do you actually teach with DBQ, right? What is their six-step method of being able to produce better writers? This will be something that we'll be leaning on and leveraging in the years to come. So with that, I turn it over to Amali Kent, and it's going to be the Amali Kent Show. So thank you so much, Amali, for joining us.
Thank you, Ryan, for that very nice welcome, and good morning, everyone. First of all, thank you again for your time and for everything that you're doing for our students. I know teaching in today's environment isn't easy, so once again, please know that we appreciate you. Let me just very quickly share my screen, and I will get my deck up here, and then we'll get started. So again, welcome to our introductory training into the DBQ project. My contact information right here is on this slide. It's just amali@dbqproject.com. If you ever need any additional support, please just reach out. I also want to give you guys an email, a direct email to our tech team if you ever need any kind of technical support. And that's just support@dbqproject.com. Again, if there's anything going on with the platform, you're having trouble, just email them. They'll email you back right away or hop on a quick Zoom with you and troubleshoot it. They're wonderful. So I want to make sure you have that information available readily. So as Ryan said, the purpose for this training is two parts. We want to make sure you can use our online platform, DBQ Online. This is a fantastic tool for remote learning or virtual learning, but it's also a great tool for traditional instruction in a brick and mortar environment too. But to really understand our platform, you have to understand our methodology because it's built around it. So I want to make sure I introduce you all to our 6-step method as well. So our session today, to get, to achieve those goals, we're going to break it into 5 parts. First, we're going to spend some time looking at the materials and the methodology, the 6-step method. I want to make sure that you can all log into Clever. You know how to do that. I know Rush showed you a little bit on what that looks like, but I want to walk you through that. We're going to spend quite a bit of time, going over the ins and outs of the platform. How do you create a class? How do you customize assignments? How do you provide timely feedback to your students? That kind of thing. And then I'm going to walk you through creating a lesson that I might use as a first lesson with my kids. Now, when I make this lesson, what are some things that I'm going to do to make this first lesson go smoothly, right? How might I introduce some of these annotation tools? How would I introduce document analysis to kids if they're brand new to not only inquiry, but maybe DBQ Online itself? So we're going to spend some time, as Ryan said, looking at teaching with DBQ Online also. And then at the end, there's lots of support available for you. You have a wonderful team at your district office, but our tech team is also here to help you too. And I just want to make sure you know all the support that is available to you. So just a couple of housekeeping items before we dive into this. If you are watching this live, please, send us your questions. We'll definitely stop along the way to answer those as well. As Jack said, we are keeping an eye on that chat feature. So ask us questions if you have it. Okay, let's go ahead and dive right in. So let's start with the first part, looking at the DBQ project materials and our 6-step method. So for those of you who are brand new, I know this is, by the way, I didn't say this earlier. I've been with the DBQ project since 2014 as a trainer. But before that, I taught elementary for 8 years. And I was exposed to the DBQ project through the Teaching American History grant. And when I first heard DBQs, I'm like, well, what's a DBQ? It wasn't something that was really common in the elementary world because, since the 80s, DBQ's been around, but it was for high school. Right? It was how College Board assessed it was part of the AP exam. So I didn't know what it was all about. So let me just go back to the beginning. DBQ stands for document-based questions. And as I said, for a long time, it was exclusively for high school. But us at the DBQ project, we're about, making sure all kids do the deep thinking, the analysis, the synthesis, the sourcing that is required in a DBQ, but starting really young, right? We shouldn't wait till high school to teach these skills, right? We got to teach our kids not only content, but how to be critical thinkers. So that's what our mission is all about. Before I go deep into our actual materials, I want to show you a quick clip just to, again, kind of introduce you to our mission we're very, very strong in our beliefs that all kids need to walk out of school being these critical thinkers. So let me show you this quick clip real quick.
The DBQ project grew out of our observation that kids at all levels needed to be challenged and supported at the same time, and that was happening unequally, not only in our classes or in our school, but now we know nationally. It really is, in my heart, a way to accelerate the achievement of a lot of kids who need accelerating, but do it in a very concrete way.
A DBQ is a document-based question. This is an activity that has students read a series of documents, all of which shed light on a central historical question. Then once they've read and analyzed the documents, they then construct an evidence-based argumentative essay.
A textbook just gives you the answers. It doesn't require any sort of knowledge. You just read it and it's there. But in the DBQ, it requires you to actually decipher it and learn something. So there's a huge difference.
I think what defines us is that it's the clarity of the structure that we provide teachers, who in turn provide that structure to students. This is very intimidating for a lot of kids to do this open-ended thinking. Maybe they need to be coached and feel some confidence.
From a teacher point of view, it's really good for those kids that kind of stand on the outside and may be having problems making the connection and analyzing the documents. They see other kids doing that. Oh, I can do this.
The whole subject matter becomes alive and throbbing for the student and for the interest. And that enables you to get invested and to participate.
You have to go through your sources and put them in the buckets. So which one can go with the first bucket? Which one goes with the second bucket? Which one goes with the third bucket? Where you have evidence from them that matches what your reasoning is.
And you look at the detective, you're like, oh my, so this happened. Wait, this happened on the other day. And you're like, you try to like bring that together.
You said it earlier. What did you feel like?
It would be hard to just start by just like reading the sources and then just go straight into my essay. It's a lot easier to organize them and then take from that little sheet that was bucketing and other organization techniques to then write the paper from that.
The DBQ is traditionally used in AP classes, and what the DBQ project has done is scaffold the process in order to make it accessible to a wider range of students.
There's a big push, obviously, a national push around the Common Core state standards. The DBQ project, I think, is one of the answers of how to get students to that level of thinking faster and more efficiently.
So I started with a real guided, and then, like I said, broke away some of those guides for them, and they still continue to use. They used what they've learned.
I think the most important skill or contribution that we make to a kid is confidence. We're giving all kids the opportunity to learn how to put together a presentable written piece.
The goal is to get them to be lifelong learners, to get them to be excited about learning and about discovering new information.
They feel that this activity has integrity. They feel good when they're through doing it. And I think more than anything else, that we are providing these kids with an opportunity to go on to whatever it is and know that, my goodness, at least in one important area of school, I was successful.
So, ladies and gentlemen, as I mentioned before, again, we know how important the content is. Of course, we have to teach content. Of course, we have to tackle literacy. But again, we want to make sure these kids are leaving our classrooms being critical thinkers and lifelong learners. So let's go ahead and continue on by looking at our materials. Again, if you have any questions, let us know if you're watching this live. So Ryan kind of talked about this before. We have two different types of materials. We have our print binders and we have our digital platform DBQ Online. We will be talking about the online platform during this training. But I want to let you know that these print binders exist. They might be in your school buildings already. But if you see this print binder, just know what's on the digital platform, DBQ Online, well, the content's identical. Okay, you're not going to get different content on the online platform. It's the same. But what's different is being able to use it, to teach kids remotely. And also, even if you're in an actual classroom, there are tools to scaffold and differentiate a little bit quicker and easier with DBQ Online. But just know the content is the same. When you log into DBQ Online a little bit, you'll see tons of binders in your library. As Ryan said, the JCPS curriculum team, they have gone through and aligned the different questions in each binders to your standards. There are DBQ binders and then there's mini Q binders. Teachers always ask me, Amali, what's a mini Q versus a DBQ? Well, our DBQ binders were our original binders. And when these were created, way back when, this is probably even before I think I was an educator, the AP exam had way more documents in it, actually like double the documents. So our original binders, our DBQ binders, have more documents that goes with each compelling question. A lot of advanced classes still use them, and you can still pull out documents for instruction. But our mini Qs, which most grade levels use, the units in those are smaller, typically between 4 and 8 documents. And there's mini Qs in American history, civics, econ, geography, world. There's all these different binders. Elementary teachers, I want to point out that there are 2 elementary binders also. And a lot of your lessons will come from these elementary binders. And I'll make sure today that I'm highlighting units from these binders. But again, you'll pull some things from the other binders also. But these binders have been around for about 3-4 years, and these were written specifically for an elementary audience, okay?
Kamal, you piqued my interest with the word economics. I just remember kind of shuddering every time I had to cover that. So that's fantastic that there are resources out there. That was always a tough one for me to cover as a social studies teacher.
Oh, absolutely. It's funny, another district that I worked with, they were implementing DBQs systematically each year. They were, adding DBQs into their library. And the first one they started with is with the econ binder, because often there's not a ton of great resources for econ. And I guess I should also point out that the econ binder, was actually written, a good chunk of it over in Kentucky. So thank you all for that. We're based out of Chicago, by the way. So I will focus on the elementary binders for this particular session. So before we do that, I want to introduce you a little bit to what these lessons look like, because again, whether you're using the econ binder, the geography binder, or the elementary binder, that format is the same. We'll look at the 6-step method closer in a few minutes, but let's just get a quick snippet, a quick peek at one of these lessons look like. And I'll have some elementary kids here from Texas actually do that for you. So let me hit play.
Hello, my name is Jewel, and for the past few weeks, I've been studying what caused the Dust Bowl. So I have put together this essay for you, and I'm just going to read it right now.
Have you ever immediately picks up a swarm of dust? In the 1930s, the Dust Bowl unexpectedly hit the southern plains of the U.S. due to the Great Depression. People like the rabbits do it every day, sneak and spread clots over the frozen caused the Dust Bowl. We will always know that the dust storm was the most wretched dust storm in history. about DBQs is learning more history. I like that you could write about anything you want, but it has to be on topic. It's super fun to be learning about the Dust Bowl. I like the hook exercises because they're really nice and they help you kind of prepare for what you're actually writing. Like it has the background essays, and the background essays really give us a lot of information. And if you don't want to read it, then you could just let the computer read it to you. Then I would take notes on the different paragraphs, and I would say, oh, I should probably put this in my writing, so I would put it on a sticky note. And if you organize your thoughts, then it will be easier to write. My favorite part was the documents, because you learn stuff about something you didn't know in history. So I had to read a lot of documents off of the Dust Bowl to figure out how the Dust Bowl happened, what caused the Dust Bowl, and why. It's coming up with evidence and thinking. It's not just like writing. I like when my teacher puts the sticky notes and stuff because it helps a lot. Because she guides us instead of you have to highlight it in your brain. You can actually highlight it. You can write down whatever you want on a sticky note. You can write down whatever you want on a text box. You have your own free will to do what you want, support your evidence and stuff. Well, in the end, I know everything is colorful on my page because I have highlighters on it. I have green sticky notes on it, and it attracts my attention to see that. Look, this is important, this is not, don't use this, use this. It really helps. I think it helps me focus more. Since my topic is what caused the Dust Bowl, 3 causes of the Dust Bowl are farmers and tractors, which goes in one bucket, then the drought in second bucket, and then supply and demand in the third bucket. And the thrash out is really fun because you get to share your ideas and put it out there so you're not just one little thing and one small voice. You're a really big voice, and you might win the thrash out by not win, but you might get a lot of people to come to your side because of your voice. The thrash out's my favorite. During the thrash out, I really liked the way the supply and demand had all the backup and information I needed. I just enjoy speaking loudly and debating over what I believe. But then as I got more and more to writing my essay, I realized I didn't have enough as I did with the tractors or the drought. You get to use your proof and evidence that shows what you're writing about is true. I tried pretty hard. It helped me become a better writer. I feel very proud of myself. I'd also like to thank Grammarly.
These kids are hysterical. I love the kid that says you can write about anything you want except it has to be on topic. And again, that's what DBQs are all about, right? It's evidence-based writing, right? If you're going to formulate a claim, make sure that you can back it up with credible sources, right? And evidence. I really wish some of my family members can kind of figure that part out too. Thanksgiving might be a little bit more pleasant at our house. But anyways, it's an important skill. So let me continue to go on and talk a little bit more about the materials, unless Ryan or Jack, if there's any questions that have popped up in the chat that I should address.
It looks pretty quiet over there, Molly. It's we're just typing in some, pointers as you go along. So keep on keeping on. I'll let you know if anything.
Sounds good. Okay. So the next thing I want to point out is if you are using our materials, whether it's online or whether it's with those big print binders, is you'll notice that every single lesson is printed multiple times. In the mini Q binders, it's printed twice. In the in the elementary binders, it's printed 3 times. And let me go over what those versions are. So the first 2 versions you would see, and this is in all the elementary and the micro Q or mini Q binders, is you have an enhanced version. It's labeled with an EV. And then there's a second version that we call the clean version, and it's labeled with a CV, and it's very clearly labeled. And I'll show you what this looks like on the online platform in just a little bit. But as you can see, the difference is that the enhanced version has some supporting questions, some text-dependent questions to help the kids analyze the document. So if your kids need a little bit of extra support, the enhanced version might be a great place to start. Again, I taught 5th grade and we use the enhanced version most of the time. So I just want to let you know that that's the difference between the enhanced version and the clean version. The 3rd version, this is only in the elementary binders, we have something called a micro cue. So we have the EV, the enhanced version, the CV, the clean version, right, without the scaffold, and in the micro cue version, everything's smaller. So what you're reading, for example, that background essay the students talked about a little while ago, even that reading passage is shorter. Instead of seeing maybe 3 or 4 documents, the kids might see 1 or 2. So a micro cue is, the content's the same, but it might be a great way to start off DBQ online because everything's smaller, right? It's much more manageable. And what's also a little bit different between the micro cue and the EV and the CV version is that in the EV and the CV version, the end product is an essay, right? And in the micro cue, it's one well-developed body paragraph. So again, the task is also smaller. But of course, ladies and gentlemen, when you're first starting out with, these DBQ lessons, maybe your end product is a paragraph or a quick write. Or maybe, it's a discussion board that you're using with another platform. Or maybe it's a Flipgrid that where the kids make a little video on their claim and explaining why they think what they think. So don't be afraid to use other platforms or other tools along with DBQ Online. And I'll definitely model that as this particular training continues. So once again, there are 3 versions of the same lesson in our elementary binders, the EV, the CV, and the micro cue. And in our mini Q binders, right, the econ binder, geography binder, world history binders, there's the EV and the CV. And again, remember the difference between EV and CV is that the EV has the guided questions or those supporting questions that go along with each document. The last thing I want to point out about materials before we log into DBQ Online is that every student page that we have has a matching teacher page. We joked around earlier about econ. If I had to teach an econ class, I might cry, right? I mean, I don't really know much about it. I haven't had econ since college. So I love these teacher pages because there's all this extra content notes on the teacher side, right? I joke around, but but I'm not joking. You can totally fake it until you make it with the teacher notes. The content notes are fabulous. All the answers to those guided questions are there. And in a lot of our binders, there's also skill builders and other ideas on that teacher page also. So it's just a fabulous resource, especially right now, if you're teaching a class that is new to you. Because I know, right now, a lot of movements happening for educators. So just an FYI. So that's just a little bit of information about our materials. And we'll log into DBQ Online in a minute and look at this material a little bit closely. Okay, so I think we talked about the lessons quite a bit so far, and I think why these DBQs are important has, it's pretty apparent. We're doing a lot of higher order thinking when we're going through these DBQ lessons. But again, I have to be really honest. I'm always very transparent when I do these trainings. Using inquiry-based lessons, they're great, but sometimes our kids, they struggle with it. And sometimes us as educators, we struggle with it because you have to kind of almost like let go, right? It's not us lecturing. It's not us just telling the kids what happened. It's like we have to let them go to discover it, right? And then we have to find ways to kind of steer them in the right direction if they're way off base, right? We have to teach them how to interpret history. And that's not always easy. So again, that is why, as I mentioned earlier, all our lessons have this methodology that we call the 6-step method built in. We hope that seeing the 6 steps in 3rd grade, 8th grade, 11th grade. That kind of vertical alignment of skills will help the students tackle an inquiry, right? Or if a student becomes an adult and they have this question or this source in front of them, they know exactly how to think. Well, there's this question that I'm seeing, as I'm watching the news. Okay, what should I do? Let me go corroborate it first. Well, what's the source saying? So again, this is why we have that 6-step method built into all our lessons. And it's really, really important that you all are comfortable with the 6-step method to understand the ins and outs of our platform. So one last video before we log in. And this video is going to go a little bit more in depth into that 6-step method. And again, once we log in, I'll make sure I talk about how to adapt certain things when you're in a remote environment as well. So real quick, a little bit more in-depth look at the 6-step method. And this particular video is going to be narrated by Chip Brady, one of the co-founders and co-authors of the DBQ project.
Hello, everybody. This is Chip Brady with the DBQ project. I'm going to take you through a 4 to 5 minute exercise where I just kind of detail the different steps in the DBQ project method. We'll use the DBQ online platform to kind of walk you through, and I'll use a mini Q because it most clearly lays out the explicit nature of our teaching approach. We'll go into Volume 1 World History, and we will actually use the Fall of Rome DBQ. Don't worry about how to get here. That is a different screencast. In our work for the student, we'll focus on the student side. We always start with a cover page, which addresses the question here, and it gives a little bit of an overview and lists the documents. There's a lot of work to be done on this page, but it is not officially part of the step 1 or step 2 of our process. That starts when you hit the next page, which is a hook exercise. The hooks are meant to be interactive when you're in a classroom, and anything you do remotely, you should ask kids to dialogue if they have somebody in the room or a partner who can talk about it. And they're meant to be 15 to 20 minute exercises debating a particular task or a situation. In this case, we're looking at America in the 21st century, looking at things that may be a problem that might actually lead to its decline. And what we want kids to debate there is whether or not which of these is the most significant or not. And again, we want to prime their thinking as they begin to lean their historical minds on into the idea of looking at Rome. So step 1 is the hook. Step 2 is the background essay. This is building contextual background for our students who might need a little more support, and it really targets the task. These are 1 page. We do a lot of active reading and on this, and often multiple reads. If I was doing this remotely, I'd focus on the audio support, and at least one of the reads should involve the audio support. But step 2 is the background essay. That is partnered in the EB version with background essay questions, which are text-dependent questions that might help students deconstruct some of the key ideas or concepts in these particular unit. Step 3 is what we call clarifying the question and pre-bucketing. And really it's 2 parts. The first part, if you look at it here, is looking at what are the words in the question and what does it really mean? So we always ask them the same way. What is the analytical question? What terms need to be defined? And rewrite the question in your own words. In this particular DBQ, what caused the fall of Rome, we're really defining fall. And if you look at our definition here, what were the 3 reasons most caused the decline of Rome? And of these, which was primary? This is really a student's own language and how to maybe frame the question. We want them to slow down and say the question in their own words, defining key terms. We then want them to predict the categories of analysis. So in this particular case, what caused the fall of Rome? We're hinting that the documents might produce 5 different causes or reasons for the fall of Rome. And all we want right here is reason 1, reason 2, reason 3, reason 4, reason 5. They don't know what the reasons are yet, but we're getting their minds primed to look for these types of things in the document. So step 3 is pre-bucketing and clarifying the question. Step 4 are the documents, and this is the bulk of the exercise. And if you look at the drop-down menu, you can see the pages that are here. This is most of the pages in a mini Q or a mother Q. And in the EB version of the documents, we have questions underneath. And in the CB version of the DBQs or mini Qs, we take away those questions. that is the teacher choice, but the key here, and we won't go into different elements of document analysis, is that the kids need to dig their evidence out, taking a look at the documents, finding the different reasons that Rome fell. And once they spend their time doing that, we put them into the writing, really pre-writing phase. And step 5 of our process is bucketing. And bucketing, we actually have 2 things going on here. We want students to actually identify maybe reasons for the fall of Rome that they found in the documents, cluster the evidence like you have here. This is one possible example, although there's hundreds even within this little mini queue of ways to go with this. And then develop a thesis statement based on these buckets. And so we pair the bucketing and what we call the chicken foot on the same page so students know that they are related. So step 5 is bucketing and the chicken foot. The last section, really, there's a couple of sections we move into the writing. And we won't go detailed into the writing structures, but what we want students to do is follow a constructed outline that gets to evidence-based writing, in particular with a clear thesis or claim statement, a clear topic, sentences or subclaims, and evidence and reasoning in every body paragraph. So that's a summary of the 6 steps. Hope it is helpful.
So, ladies and gentlemen, that was a little overview of the 6 steps. Again, as we plan for this first lesson that you might implement with your students, we'll look at the 6 steps in action closer, and we'll definitely discuss how to adapt certain things to make it work for a remote environment also. All right, so let me go ahead and go back to this deck here real quick.
Molly, I just really like how scaffolded this whole approach is. It's going to make it so much easier for both the kids and teachers.
Thank you, Jack. I know first when teachers hear like bucketing and chicken feet, they're like, wait, what? Like, what? Why do you have all this in there? But just like you said, the scaffold, it's there to scaffold, right? And once the kids know how to write a thesis or a claim, they don't need to use the chicken foot anymore, but it's a very clear graphic organizer to teach the kids how to first start writing those. So thank you. All right, so let's go ahead and move on to the next part of our session, making sure everyone can log into DBQ Online through Clever. And then after that, we'll look at how to create those classes and assignments and things like that also. So I think Russ discussed this a little bit earlier, but you're all going to log in to DBQ Online through Clever. This is for educators as well as students. So I'm going to, I think Vincent Tinker made this video. It's fabulous. It shows you how to log in. Let me play that. Then I'll log into my DBQ Online account, and then I'll show you how to make your classes. So again, this is how to log into DBQ Online through Clever.
To access DBQ project through Clever, first you must go to the JCPS Clever page. Then you need to log in. I do this by clicking on Login with Google. That is connected to my Google JCPS account. Then it'll take you to their main page. You can find DBQ project under district page. Under district page applications, you can now see DBQ project online. If you would like this to be on your main page, you can select the little favorite heart button there, and it will now be on your main page in the future. To go into DBQ project, just click on DBQ project. This is the main page DBQ project in which you can access all of their files. If this is the first time that you are accessing DBQ project, you'll be prompted with a terms use page. There they will list the DBQ project terms of use. If you scroll to the bottom, you will see an accept button that you must check, and then you will select yes, accepting DBQ project's terms of use. After you accept it, it will then take you to this page. And that is how you access DBQ project through Clever.
Vincent, thank you for making that video. And again, whether you are a teacher or a student, you are going to go to DBQ Online through Clever. There isn't any additional usernames or passwords. The integration is complete. So go into Clever, click on DBQ Online, and then you'll be able to access your classes as an educator, and for students, they'll be able to access the lessons that you create. Okay, so what I'm going to do right now is I'm actually going to log into my DBQ online account, and then I'll walk you through how to create classes and things like that. So as Vincent said, this dashboard is what you'll see when you log into DBQ online. Again, this is once you accept our terms and use and privacy, that kind of thing. So here's our dashboard. There's a lot of things here. Couple things I want to point out to you right away is first, your library, all your DBQ binders are going to be up here on the top left-hand corner where it says DBQ library. So when you click on that, excuse me, it'll take you to your library. So you can go in and preview the different binders that you have access to, as well as the different lessons inside it. So if I go to, for example, Elementary Mini Qs Volume 2, if I click on that, it'll show me that I have 11 lessons to choose from, right? And I can also see very clearly that I can assign the enhanced version, the clean version without those text-dependent questions, or that micro Q where you are seeing less documents, you have less reading, and the end product is that paragraph instead of an essay. So if you want to preview anything, this is where you can go. Excuse me. So for example, if I want to preview this lesson on how the buffalo shaped the Arapaho culture, or like, the Plains culture for Plains Native Americans, I can preview it. I can go through it, look at the different documents in it. I can go preview the background reading and all those things, okay? So that's how you would preview your library as well as some of those lessons. And again, your wonderful curriculum team has gone through and aligned the lessons that you would use with your standards. Okay, just gonna take a quick sip of water. I'm losing my voice here, that's not a good thing. All right, so let me click on this DBQ Online button, this red button on the top left-hand corner. This will always take you back to your dashboard. A couple of other things I want to point out. There is a quick getting started with DBQ Online video here on the bottom that is going to review what I'm about to show you, which is how to create a class, create assignments, and that kind of thing. So this is the shortened Cliff Notes version of what I'm about to show you. So to create your classes and assignments, you're going to go to this middle tile, and you're going to click on View. I've been in here before, so I already have one class set up, but to create a class, you're just going to select Add Class, and then you would type whatever you want that class to be called. Maybe it's first period US history or something like that. And it's that simple. Now your class is created. Every time you create a class, it's going to generate a class code. So here's the class code for that first period history. Here's the class code for my second period US history. They're different. So what you would do is, if you teach multiple sections, is you would communicate that class code with that particular class. So I'll show you the student side of DBQ Online in a little bit, but what your kids do is they enter that class code in the very first time they log into DBQ Online, similar to Google Classrooms, and then they'll be able to access everything. Once again, they only do that one time, just like Google Classrooms, they self-enroll that first time, and then they'll never have to mess with that class code again. But it's important to note that every class, if you teach multiple sections, you'll have a different class code, and you would just share that with that group of kids. Okay. So let's look next at how to create and customize a lesson. I'm actually going to go back to my deck just for 1 second. There's a slide I want to show you. Hold on 1 second. During this particular training, I am going to focus on 4 specific tools. There's lots of tools that we'll look at, but these 4 are the ones that we're going to really spend some time digging deep into, because these really help with remote learning. we're going to look at how to use the customize tool to maybe shorten assignments. Ryan mentioned this earlier, that maybe there are some pages that you might not want to use in a lesson. Cool, you can take it out. Or maybe you're not comfortable using our bucketing with the first lesson. Cool, you can take that section out if you want to. So we'll look at the customize tool. We'll also look at audio for reading support. We'll look at how you can mark up pages, documents, that way you can increase communication with your students who might be doing something asynchronous. And then we'll look at how to give feedback as well. So we'll definitely be looking at these 4 tools very close today. All right, back to creating an assignment. So once you have your class created, the next thing you're going to do is you're going to select where it says add assignment. When you go ahead and select that, it's going to take you back to that library. And then you're going to go to the binder of your choice. I'm going to scroll down back to elementary, and I'm going to go to Jamestown. Often around this time of the year, I would do this lesson with my students personally. So again, I have the EV, the CV, or that microQ version. You probably have noticed by now that our lessons are available in Spanish. This is for our elementary, US, and our world history material. These can be assigned in Spanish or English, as well as being able to toggle back and forth between the languages. So if you need that particular support, just know that it is there. So I'm going to go to the enhanced version, which is typically what I use with my kiddos. Let me select assign, and then it's going to take me to this page. So when you're making an assignment, you're going to have a few choices, which is a good thing. The first choice is, do you want to assign the entire unit as it is? All the documents, that kind of thing. Or you can customize it to shorten it. Regardless of which option you choose, you have some other supports that you can turn on to scaffold this lesson some more. I'm going to go to customize. So when I select customize, my entire unit pops up. Again, I recommend previewing these units before you get to this step. But let's say, for an example, this DBQ has 4 documents and I only want to use 3. With one click, I can take that document away. Maybe for this particular lesson, my students will not be writing an essay. Instead, they're going to make a little video on Flipgrid communicating why they think the Jamestown settlers died. Maybe I'll take that essay section away. So just with a couple clicks, I made this assignment look the way I want it to look like. So once again, ladies and gentlemen, to do that, to shorten or customize a lesson, you're going to select customize. Okay? So once I have this lesson the way I want it, and again, if I want to go and look at something real quick, I can select preview, and it'll open up in a new tab, and I can go look at that document or that page. So once I do that, I'm going to look at the additional supports that I have available to me. I'll turn most of these on just so I can model it. The first question they ask is, do you want to turn on the English-Spanish toggle? So if I'm doing this, if I'm assigning this in Spanish, then they will be able to toggle to English, or vice versa. So let me go ahead and select yes. I highly recommend that you turn on the read aloud, especially for all those instances when your kids are working away from you. So those are 2 of the supports that you have. You also have some writing supports if you choose to do the essay. And we do, ladies and gentlemen, recommend that the students write at least 1 essay per quarter per semester to get the full benefit of our program, right? Thinking is clarified by writing. And if we don't give the students an opportunity to write, that level of thinking is not going to happen. And some kids are really good at articulating their arguments verbally, but when they have to write, they struggle. Often it's because of confidence. So we really want to give them a chance to improve their writing skills too, as it is a vital skill for life. So when you're writing the essay with your students, there's other supports you can turn on. The guided essay, which is an essay outline with sentence starters. So if you have any kiddos who really need some, modeling or just some support to get an essay, well, you can turn the guided essay on for them, and it gives them those sentence starters or sentence frames. You can turn on our essay builder, which I'll show you in just a little bit, but it's super, super scaffolded. And then also every one of our units come with 3 sample essays. So maybe you want to show kids what exemplar writing looks like. And as the teacher, I used to struggle. I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to show my kids what good citation looks like. So let me quickly, write a paragraph or something. Or what does an argument look like? But the nice thing with DBQs is every one of our units comes with 3 sample essays, a basic, a proficient, and an exemplar essay, so you can model what good writing looks like. So you have these particular scaffolds available for the writing as well.
That's super nice, Amali. I really like that.
Yeah, it's really nice because the teacher has let me actually turn that on. The teacher has the ability to turn it on and off. So maybe you don't want the kids to see it right away because they might take a screenshot or something and try to pass it off as their own essay. So you have the option of when they see it, which is kind of nice. And last but not least, we do have some pre-made rubrics. We have 4 of them. You can, I recommend if you're going to use one of our rubrics to preview them. Just a quick overview of what these rubrics are about. Probably the most detailed rubric is the comprehensive. A lot of our ELA teachers use this first rubric. What that does, it takes every element of a proficient essay and it gives it like that 4, 3, 2, 1 criteria with some very specific criteria they have to meet to get that 4, 3, 2, 1. The holistic rubric, I would say, is probably be the fastest when you're grading. It kind of gives you a big picture of the paper with, again, some criteria to get that particular score. The self-check rubric is identical to the comprehensive rubric, except, let me show you that, the student will self-check before they send it to the teacher, right? So it's a nice way for them to kind of self-assess their writing. And then the most basic rubric that allows them to self-check is the scoring guide rubric. So this is, it's very straightforward. It's not a qualitative rubric. It's more like a checklist, like a quantitative rubric, where the kids are like, did I include a grabber in my paper? Yes or no. Did I put some background information for contextualizing in my introductory paragraph? Yes or no. Do I have a thesis? Yes or no. So a lot of teachers use this rubric to start their writing off with, but I know your district has some fabulous performance-based task rubrics that you should look at incorporating as well.
That's right, Amali. If I could just jump in real quick. We've been working really hard to make sure that the rubric that we're going to be using, which will be linked in, Vincent Archie has a video about this as well, is looking at, is it clear? Is it accurate? Is it evidenced? Is it reasoned? And this will hopefully align better to the K-Prep tests that are coming, right? And as we talked about previously, when it comes to the needs of that test, which should be released at the end of this month, then this is going to align 100% to the types of tasks that students are going to be engaged in. And what I'll say to those elementary folks that are listening, that students are going to have to do more than what the ELA standards require of them. They're going to have to pull together 4 to 5 documents and corroborate evidence in order to create claims. And so DBQ is a fantastic pathway for helping get those students ready for that.
Thanks, Ryan. I was hoping you would jump in with your performance-based task rubrics. Great. So ladies and gentlemen, so once you have this lesson the way you want it, then you would push this out to your kids. So one of the last options you're going to see is, do you want to specify students who received the assignment? Now, this particular class that I built, I don't have any kids in it. So I can't use this particular feature, but I'll show you this on another account in a little bit. But basically what this means is once your kids have logged into DBQ Online, all their names are going to pop up here, your entire roster. So what's nice about this is you can send a particular lesson to just certain kids. So maybe you want that Spanish toggle for 3 kids. So you can make this lesson to certain kids, and then you can copy this lesson over to the rest of the class, take the Spanish toggle off, and push it out to them. I hope I didn't lose anybody with that, but I promise you I'll show you that in a little bit in a class where I actually have real kids. But you do have the ability to create the same assignments with different scaffolds for different groups of kids in the same class, which is an amazing feature to have, right? How can you really differentiate your instruction? Because we do have a gamut of kids in our classroom.
And that's a super nice feature there, Amali. Thanks for pointing that out to everybody.
Absolutely. I have the inclusion classroom, and again, this would have made my life so much easier, being able to just with a couple clicks differentiate what they get. So again, once you have the lesson the way you want it, you're going to either save it or save and assign it. Save means that the lesson is ready, but it's not live in your kids' hands yet, right? Maybe on a teacher work day, or unfortunately on the weekends, like we work too often in, you might want to make something prior, right? So if you're not ready to push it out to the kids yet, just hit save, and it's ready, but it's not live. If it's ready to be pushed out to your students, then go ahead and select save and assign, and then it goes right to their DBQ accounts. So I'm going to select save so I can show you how to make it live. Regardless of which option you choose, ladies and gentlemen, you're going to, oh, I don't have any kids, you're right. Oh, that's why, sorry, I don't have any kids yet, okay. So let me go ahead and select save. So regardless of which option you choose, you're going to get this pop-up. And what this pop-up is going to ask is, hey, do you want to add any markups? Do you want to customize this lesson with markups even more? You can add markups later by selecting not now, or you can go ahead and add markups. So what this does, it gives you the whole lesson, and it's now in what we call markup mode. So let me repeat that. Because you're adding markups, you're in markup mode. And you know you're in markup mode because this little yellow box is highlighted up top. Whenever you're in markup mode, you know that yellow has to be lit up. If it's not, whatever you're doing on this page, you're only kind of doing it to your own page, right? So during this instructor markup mode, anything you do onto the page, it transfers also over to the kids' pages. So let's say, for example, you want to give the kids some directions, whatever those directions are. You can type it right onto the page, and when they open their lesson, they'll see those additional directions right on the page. So if they're doing anything asynchronously, this is really nice because you can, again, reiterate those directions right on the documents. And you can add these markups into a live lessons. So in the middle of you teaching your lesson and you realize, oh my gosh, my kids need a little bit more support, they might need like a definition for this and that, you can go in and you can add these markups very strategically, and then the kids will see it on their pages as well. So it's a really nice feature. We call this our instructor markup, okay? But again, you have to be in instructor markup mode to be able to do this. So I'm just gonna navigate by using this drop-down box to the background essay. So let's say I wanna highlight something that I want my kids to pay attention to. When I highlight something in the markup mode, it'll also be highlighted in the student pages as well. But once again, you have to make sure you're in markup mode. And I actually marked up a lesson already, which I'll show you guys what that looks like next. Okay, so to go back to my assignments, I'm gonna click on Return to Assignments, and I'm back to that teacher dashboard. So before I show you how to take this lesson, this draft lesson, and make it live, I'm going to jump to a lesson that I made before this training where I put some markups already in. Okay, it's a live lesson. It's the same exact lesson, but with the markups built. So as I mentioned before, even when a lesson is live, you can add markups. And you do that by going to this little gear icon, this settings button. Let me zoom a little bit, my screen. When you click on this settings button, you're going to get some options. One of the options is edit teacher markup. So I'm going to click on that. And now I'm back in markup mode. And I can go back and add more markups to my particular page. So maybe I want to put a post-it or a little markup that says, use the text box tool to write your answers. Okay, so if there's any directions I want to give to the kids, I can go ahead and add that in the markup mode. And I know I'm in markup mode, even in a live assignment, when I see this yellow box lit up. So let me go back. So now I'm going to click on view. I'm not going to go to instructor markup. I'm going to just be in regular view. So if I'm doing any kind of modeling, right, I'm doing a synchronous lesson, my kids are with me, and I'm going through parts of this DBQ with them, I'm not going to be in instructor markup mode. I'm just going to be in view where I'm modeling. So if I'm sharing my screen with my students, they see what's on my computer. But really, what they see on my screen is what's on their screen also, because it's marked up. I hope that makes sense. So again, to clarify, if I'm doing any kind of live instruction, where I want to be is that I'm going to press that button view, and then the kids will see what's on my screen, whether it's on Google Meets or Zoom or whatnot. So I'm going to walk you through a little bit of this lesson, and I haven't forgotten that I have to show you how to change a draft into a live lesson. I promise I'll do that. But here we are in this lesson that I marked up. I can't move these post-its anymore when I'm in view because these were made in instructor markup. So they're there, right? They're permanently there because they were put there by the teacher, me. So a couple of things about navigating DBQ online. First, to move from page to page, again, you can use this drop-down feature, or you can use the arrows on this light gray bar to move forward or to move back. The students have the same, they see the same exact thing that you see, except you have your teacher notes also, right? So the next thing I want to go over are some of these annotation tools. There are annotation tools in the teacher accounts, and the annotation tools are identical in the student accounts. So our thought process there was, when we use paper, we teach kids to mark up a document, right? We teach them how to number the paragraphs. We have them make margin notes. We have them circle important things or highlight important things, right? I tell my kids all the time, circle words that you don't know, that kind of thing. So we want kids to be able to do the same type of thinking and marking on an online interface. So we have these annotation tools on everyone's own accounts that auto-save right onto their page. So one thing I recommend when you are first using DBQ Online to teach with your kids is to maybe take two approaches. You can choose which one works for you on how to introduce the annotation tools. Some teachers just very quickly goes over the tools, like very quickly in 5 minutes, and say, take 3 minutes, play with the annotation tools, get comfortable, let's move on. Other teachers, and this is what I tend to lean towards, is I say strategically introduce a couple of annotation tools at a time. So when I'm in the cover page, almost every time I'm doing a lesson with students or adults, is I go through certain habits on this cover. The first thing I tell them is, okay, let's look at this compelling question. What's this question? Let's use a circle tool to identify it by circling our compelling question. So already I introduced them to the circle tool, right? And I tell them, guys, you can change the colors. If you want to duplicate the circle, you can click copy and you can delete with the little trash can. So I just introduced them to that circle tool, but it was for a purpose. Some of the images in DBQ Online you can click on to enlarge, which is such a great feature, right? I mean, color copies, I mean, that's just a no-no, right? So this is nice. You can project, kids can, you know, click on their own picture and do some close analysis. But maybe what you tell the kids is to look at this picture, read the overview underneath that, so you can get an idea of what this lesson's about. And maybe you tell your kids, hey, grab a Post-it, and I want you to tell me 3 things that you see happening in this picture that'll give you an idea of, you know, what life in Jamestown is about. Maybe have them write down 3 facts and 3 inferences based off that fact, right? But now you taught them how to use the Post-it tool. And again, all these tools, it auto saves on your kids' accounts, and it's a really fabulous feature.
Molly, I love the interactivity that DBQ offers both the teachers and the students between the annotations and the markups. Rebecca was commenting about that on the chat, and it's just really good for kids to be able to break all this down.
Absolutely. And teachers, educators often ask at this point, can I see what my students are doing? Absolutely. We will look at how you can not only give, but see what the kids are doing in real time and give kids feedback in real time as well. So all these annotations that kids make, as the teacher, you can see it on your end, but we'll look at that in a little bit. And I like to give if my kids aren't with me, right, or certain parts of the lesson they are not with me, I like to give them a little bit more information than maybe even they need. So I modified this lesson. So I told them that, look, we're only going to be looking at documents A, B, and D. So underline the titles of those documents. So they are going to use the underline tool. And they know they're going to look at document A. And I might say, if you want to save yourself some time, hit that copy button, and then you can get another line, right? So now they know how to use 3 of the tools, and I'll just introduce the other tools as we go. What we don't want is, you know, spending 45 minutes just on the annotation tools, because time's valuable, and we want to use these annotation tools strategically and for, you know, instructional purposes. Okay? All right. So that's the cover page, ladies and gentlemen. As Chip mentioned earlier, it's not part of the 6-step method, but it's a pretty, you know, there's a lot of great information here. So we're going to just look a little bit closer at this lesson and talk about some things that we may modify if we're going to use this lesson remotely. So the first part of the 6-step method officially is the hook exercise. Chip said that before, and the hook exercise is there to get the kids interested in the topic. It might introduce some content they might need to know in a fun way, but the purpose is get them talking, get them excited. In this particular DBQ, they look at a map of Jamestown and they answer some questions. But the questions are fun. It gets them it kind of leaves the fact that there's some trouble coming. So it's a great hook. And if you're doing this hook, I recommend the hook exercise is done in a synchronous setting, or if you're using like breakout rooms in Google Meet, maybe the kids are collaborating in those rooms, but you want to give the kids an opportunity to talk when possible in the hook exercise. If they're completely virtual, again, encourage them to dialogue with somebody at home. So that's the hook exercise. Now, one thing I want to point out is that the hook exercise, because it's for generating discussion, we don't have text fields built in. If I jump to a document, you'll notice in the documents, there are actual text fields where the kids can type their work. But in certain pages, those text boxes aren't there. they're not there because these are these are more activities for discussion than actual like. Just let me be real transparent here again. Not everything in the DBQ lesson is for grading, right? Some things are there just to get the kids thinking. So we didn't want the hook exercise to be something that was taken for a grade, something that was exported, collected, right? So that's why those text boxes aren't there. It's there to set the scene for what's about to come next, which is the background reading. And there are text boxes for the kids to answer questions in because they have to do some active reading. So again, if there are any pages without text fields, we recommend that if you are having them, write as well as talk, have them use a text box. They can create one, or they can use a Post-it, that kind of thing. But again, the hook exercise is there to get the kids interested in the topic, dialoguing with each other, that kind of thing. So that, ladies and gentlemen, is the hook exercise. Let's jump next to the background essay. So every one of our lessons have a one quick page background essay, just to give the kids some context, right? Often our kids do not have enough background knowledge to tackle an inquiry, right? Documents don't make sense to them because they can't contextualize. So we give them enough information so the documents make sense, right? We try to give them a time period. If we're talking about Jamestown, we want them to know that this is Virginia. So where is this? So time and a place. And it's almost like we set the scene with just a little story on what's happened so far, almost like a little trailer. So as Chip mentioned, we have audio.
Early Jamestown. Why did so many colonists die? In the spring of 1607.
Again, something that you can turn on when you're creating lessons. That way, if the kids are doing this background reading independently and they need that reading support, it's there for them.
It's another nice feature, Molly, and it also sounds like you guys had a real human being to record that as opposed to a computer-generated voice, so I like that.
Absolutely. The readers are, we try to mimic the actual source. So George Washington will be George Washington. Harriet Tubman will sound like Harriet Tubman. If we have a British author, he or she has a British accent. So if you have speeches, poems that are meant to be heard, you can certainly do that with the audio feature. So a couple other things I want to point out here before we move on. Again, images you can click on to enlarge. Any vocabulary words you can click on to get definitions. And because we're browser-based, depending on your settings, you should be able to highlight, right-click, and look up words that way also. As the teacher, your kids wouldn't have this section, right? The teacher side, they would not see that. But you as the teacher can click on the teacher side, and there's all your content notes, answers, additional strategies, that kind of thing. So once again, educators, check out the teacher side as you're planning these lessons. There's often just fantastic ideas on the teacher side. Notice here, there's one of the things that we always ask our kids to do. Let me go back to student side. We always ask our kids to write a little summary when they're done reading the background essay. It's actually on the next page. We do that because then they can use the summary as part of their introductory paragraph when they write the essay. We kind of trick them into writing. But notice when you go to the teacher notes, there's some, like if you have kids who need a little extra help, we have these sentence frames where they can kind of type in their answers, or you can give this to kids who need that kind of support too. So check out the teacher side, lots of great resources here as well. So ladies and gentlemen, if your kids are doing this, asynchronously, you can put some directions in. I gave my kids some very simple directions to do while they're reading. Typically, I ask them to read, a passage like this 2 to 3 times. I said in my post-it the first time, just read it for the big picture, just get an understanding. On the second read, I'm going to give them a task, right? Underline any possible threats or dangers to the colonists, because our compelling question is, why did the Jamestown settlers die? So maybe they can already start predicting some of those reasons in this background essay. So once again, use that instructor markup tool to help you, communicate additional instructions or even reiterate those directions if those students are not with you. So that, ladies and gentlemen, is the background essay. The next step, step 3, is is a 2-part step where we make sure the students understand the essential question or the compelling question, and we also introduce buckets. So people always ask us, well, why did you put this step in? It just seems like it's like a duh. Why are you doing this? They know the essential question. Early Jamestown, why did so many colonists die? They know that. Well, yeah, they know the question, but do they really know what the question is asking? Does every kid understand what the question is asking? Does every single kid understand every word in that question? Something a lot of people don't know about me is I was born in Sri Lanka, and my family moved here when I was in 3rd grade. And I remember my teacher telling me one time to leave the door open ajar. And I knew she needed me to do something with the door to prop it open, but I kept looking for a jar to prop the door open with, because I've never heard that word ajar before. The very first time I did DBQ with my students, with my 5th graders, we tackled the DBQ, how does the Constitution guard against tyranny? Well, I assumed my kids understood what tyranny meant, and they didn't. So document analysis was very difficult because they just didn't understand the task. So this is a little formative assessment here if you're doing the full lesson. Right? You make sure the kids know exactly what their purpose is and exactly what they're trying to answer by going through these 3 prompts. Identify our question. So I'm on the teacher side here with the answers, right? What's the question asking? And they'll do this on their own or with a partner. So again, it's your formative check. Are they ready to see the documents? Are there any words that we need to define or elaborate on or to expand on? Often it might be colonist, and maybe early. Like, what do we mean by early? Are we talking the first 50 years, the first 100 years? That kind of thing. And in the background essay, we didn't read it, obviously, so we missed this part, but it talked about how we're looking at the first 4 years of the settlement. So early is actually between 1607 and 1611. So we asked them to rewrite the question in their own words. What is this question really asking? And if they can write the question in their own words, then we know that they know what to do next. We know that we're not going to get 20 essays and we're going to read them and go, what the heck is this kid talking about? Because they misread the prompt. So I personally really, truly believe that doing step 3 well will make your DBQ experience a pleasant one. And not doing it well, or maybe skipping it, might, put some, it might just kind of derail your plans a little bit. But that's the first part of step 3. Do you understand this question? If so, tell me what this question means in your own words.
Molly, I think it's really important point that you brought up, especially with your own background and how that ties into JCPS and a district our size. I'm not exactly sure that this is the right statistic, but I think there are over 100 different languages spoken in our schools. So just making sure that a teacher is not using a phrase that confuses kids and that they really understand this question of what's being assigned is important. And Rebecca kind of echoed that on the chat. So appreciate you bringing that up.
Absolutely. Even that word guard, and how does the Constitution guard against tyranny? Is guard a verb or is it a noun? What do we mean by that, right? I mean, so it's just a really important step. Please, this is one step that I say, if you're going to use the whole unit, don't skip this step. It's just vital. So part of step 3 is also introducing buckets to our kids. We often go to conferences and we're known for our buckets, right? And the buckets, when I first saw them, I thought, oh, I don't know. That seems a little primary, but they're fantastic because it just makes sense. So we tell the kids, look, guys, you're going to see documents. You're going to collect evidence. All the documents are going to, or all the buckets are going to do is help you collect your evidence and categorize or sort your evidence as you go. They've been taught to sort since kindergarten, right? To classify in science. So buckets make sense. It gives them a way to frame their thinking. So in this case, there's 3 buckets. And if our question is, why did the Jamestown settlers die? The buckets would each represent a reason why they died. So what the kids might do is they might start off with real generic buckets. They're going to say, you know what, I'm going to look for 3 reasons. Reason 1, reason 2, and reason 3. And they don't know what those reasons are yet, and they don't have to know because they gotta see the documents. But at least they know by the end they need to have 3 reasons. And if you modify the lesson and you take some documents away, it's important to let the kids know here that they might only be looking for 2 reasons or 1 reason or something like that. Just don't forget, educators, to modify the number of buckets that or answers that you need if you modify the actual lesson, okay? And if you have an argumentative prompt, like this is the ELA one, forgive me, but it's Grimm's Brothers. Were the Grimm's Brothers too grim? If that's the case, then you might start off with 2 buckets. Yes, they were too grim, or no, they weren't. Let's look at both sides, both positions, and then you take a stance on one of them, right? Same thing. Hammurabi's code, was it just? You have a bucket for yes, it was just. Collect all the evidence for yes, and collect the evidence for no. And once you look at both sides, again, then you can formulate a claim. And what's beautiful about it is if you're going to make a counter argument, you already have evidence collected in another bucket ready to go. And again, I said this earlier, and I can't say it enough. It's so important that we teach our kids to look at both sides of an issue, right? And again, just corroborate their information. So that is step 3, ladies and gentlemen. And I would again recommend you adjusting your buckets if you're going to remove any documents from a lesson as you create it. So notice all the first 3 steps, everything we've done up to this point has been nothing but prep work. We have not looked at one document yet. Everything's prep. We hopefully got them hooked with the hook. We gave them some context with the background essay. We made sure they understand the question with step 3, and we primed them to collect their evidence also with step 3 with those buckets. And then in step 4, they go to work, right? That's when they see their documents, okay? So in this particular DBQ, there are 4 documents. I modified it so there are 3. And there's lots of different ways to analyze documents. One way is to use the questions that are in the enhanced version. So the kids can go through the questions, and by the time they get to the last question, they'll have a clear understanding of the documents. Because what we did, ladies and gentlemen, is we tiered the questions. The first couple questions are right off the document. What's a tree ring? If you read the document, you can generate an answer. Then they become a little bit more inferential. You have to make some inferences, right? Think about it a little bit more. And then the last question is always, or the last couple questions are synthesis questions. Well, let's tie this back to are essential questions. So if we're looking at a tree ring here, that shows that during the time of the early settlement, there wasn't a whole lot of rain, and that's explained in our note up here. But then by the end, we ask questions like, well, based on that, how does that correlate to what the Jamestown settlers call the starving time or the starvation time? How does that impact relationship with other people who are already living there? If you have a drought going on, that kind of thing. So the questions definitely become more difficult as they go. So one way to go about document analysis, ladies and gentlemen, is just use the enhanced questions, and the kids can type their answers right in the text fields.
Molly, if I could interject for a moment.
Yeah, please.
So one thing is that the document analysis here in the enhanced version is a fantastic way of priming some of those conversations asynchronously, as we found out. And I don't know if you agree with that, Molly, but we found that this could be a good way of getting kids sort of thinking about that document. And the reason I bring it up is that we never want to make these questions the ultimate goal of the inquiry, right? The ultimate goal of the inquiry is, how does this source better help you answer the question, right? That's the alignment to standards. That's the focus on inquiry. But the enhanced version provides some of those scaffolding that helps sort of break apart that document in a way where students are able to better access that document, right? Would you say that's pretty accurate, Molly, or am I way off base here?
No, you're absolutely right. The document analysis, the questions are a tool, right? They're a tool to understand the document. And as you mentioned, in an asynchronous environment, it's a fabulous way for the kids to, especially like a flipped classroom, we can answer these questions, understand the document, then we're going to have a discussion when we're together, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think that's that's sort of how we've been couching it. So I'm glad to hear you say that, is that, what you do asynchronously is really about building as much background and sort of creating gaps. There might be students who see this and be like, I don't know the answer to that. That's okay. That's fine. We're just getting them to try to figure out what that source really talks about, right? And I know additionally, Vincent Tinker is going to join us real quick and talk about a source analysis tool that looks specifically at disciplinary and critical literacy and how we can use that tool to help leverage some of these documents for that synchronous time that's really helping break down the document for those students. So Vincent?
Yes, one of the tools that we've developed is the source analysis tool, which can be found on our website, and I'm also going to put it in the chat momentarily. It is aligned to disciplinary and critical literacy along the SHAG similar lines of sourcing, contextualization, corroboration, and close reading. And they're really looking at how we can challenge text and how we can disrupt text, disrupting being the critical literacy component. And it's a set of questions that can really help provide focus and provide interesting discussion for our students. So when we're in maybe a synchronous mode for our students, they could really have really interesting conversations about these sources that'll help them pull new, interesting information and evidence out of the sources to use for their arguments.
Thanks, Vincent. And I want to piggyback off that and remind everyone that with the Instructor markup tool, you can even add some of those prompts or those disciplinary literacy questions right into your document, right? Because you can mark these documents up before the kids see it as, again, another way to go about document analysis. Just want to add that in too. Ryan, is there anything else before we move on to the next document? I won't go through all of them.
No, I just think it's really important to remember that the focus of this is about, and as Molly said earlier, these documents are going to be difficult. They're difficult for adults, they're difficult for anyone. And that ultimately our goal is not to make something, complex simple, but to make something that's complex accessible. And the enhanced version questions help make documents accessible, as do the disciplinary and critical literacy skills. Both of those are having us to refocus and redouble our efforts on these difficult sources, right? As we're trying to use those sources to help answer the question. And I think that one thing that sometimes teachers do, which we caution against, is to bleed a source dry, right? Getting to the point where they have to understand every single bit of the minutia. If students are able to understand the main idea of a source and how it could be used as evidence, then that's great. That's fantastic. If Jack is better at understanding that than I am, then Jack and I are going to just have different answers. Both those answers could be valid. They're just going to be nuanced based upon the kinds of skills that Jack and I bring to the table, right? So I just want to make sure that we're not spending, 15 years on one source, right? When it's like, okay, at what point do the students understand the source well enough to be able to move on to the next source? Because a source in and of itself is not going to be powerful. It's the corroboration of those sources that enhance the inquiry, that generate the discussion, and that ultimately allows students to create an argument.
Yeah, and I agree with both of you, and just wanted to just go back to that, that this is not easy work. Ryan, looking at primary sources like this, and one of the main parts of the backpack is creating a resiliency in students. And, even though this is difficult work, it allows for productive struggle, I think, for those kids to really look at something difficult and have to think, and just makes me think about all those backpack skills with all of the DBQ, about being a collaborator and being an effective communicator because of the writing piece. But again, that resiliency with this is key.
Yeah, and I think, just to continue the conversation, I think that we were talking to some teachers the other day, and there was a concern that students might copy other folks' answers. It's almost impossible, I think, to do that without being too obvious in this way, right? So, like, there's no A, B, C, and so on that you would copy and you never know. Being able to put these into your own words is valuable in and of itself. And we remind everyone that inquiry should never be done alone, right? That, if Jack, Molly, and I were looking at a document together in a breakout room or even asynchronously, then we're each going to bring our own perspective, which matters, to the table. And we're going to be able to learn from each other, right? In a way where we don't then come into the classroom, right, and sort of overburden the teacher with a million different questions. That we need to really leverage each other, right, through those backpack skills that Jack just mentioned. And that writing a solid argument is a fantastic backpack item, because it's going to take multiple days and really dive into those critical thinking, right? Inquiry is our method, right, for deeper learning, and that's getting at that, ability to create those arguments as you go along.
I think what both of you said, it's absolute music to my ears. I really appreciate that. One of the things we definitely do not want, as Ryan said, is having one of these documents take multiple days, because it's one part of this unit, because you have to look at multiple sources to answer this question. That's kind of what it's all about. So people always ask, well, what's the time goal? When they're first starting out, it might take 30 minutes to go through a document. But eventually, the goal is to, in the elementary 4th, 5th grade level, you can 100% do 2 documents in one class period. Absolutely. But we don't want it to be hours and hours on the same document. And something you can also do, and Ryan said about the main idea, is when you're done going through these questions with your kids, is bring them back to the essential question. And you do that by asking this prompt. I always ask my kids, hey guys, we did this document, we went over it. Do you see a bucket title emerging from this document? Remember, we're looking for 3 reasons why the Jamestown colonists died. Do you see a reason? And if so, that's one of our bucket titles. So a student might say, yeah, Mrs. Kent, they had a drought. So one reason is there was a severe drought. Another student might word that differently. That's okay. A student might get something completely different, and that might be okay as long as they can back it up. But, bring them back to the essential question. That's the synthesis piece. And you can do that by connecting the document back to the buckets. Do you have a reason? Does this document go in one bucket? Is there multiple reasons that you see from it? That kind of thing. So use that prompt, right? how can we connect this document back to our essential question, which is, why did the Jamestown colonists die? Do you see a reason or reasons? So thank you both for kind of steering our conversation exactly to where we needed it to go. So I'm not going to spend much more time here with the documents, but I want to look at one more, document B. So this particular document, this one is adapted from John Smith's book, The General History of Virginia. Again, those sourcing questions you could add as an with the instructor markup tool, right? So I just want to point out again that you can use any other creative method to go about document analysis. So for this particular document, I put some directions in for my kids. I actually built these instructions for someone else to use with their own kids. But just a little note, charts can be tricky to read. So I give them some hints on how to read this chart, especially if they're doing this at home and they're coming back ready to discuss in class. I added some other prompts. If you were, going to Jamestown, which of these occupations would you find most useful? Or if you were going to Jamestown, do you see anything that's like redundant that you feel like you wouldn't need? Or how would you change this list if you were the person in charge, right? Like, why did you only bring one surgeon?
I don't know, Molly. I think more gentlemen is what we definitely need based on that.
Well, Jack, I'm going to go ahead and agree with you, but also add that I see 0 women, which might be a problem there too. Right? We might have kept everybody calm. So anyways, it's a wonderful document, but basically what the kids would understand once they go through these questions is that another reason why this particular establishment had some trouble in the beginning was they just had the wrong skill set, right? They lacked proper skills. They had possibly too many leaders, or just they didn't have farmers, so lack of settler skills. They brought the wrong people. So again, educators, you are so creative at what you do. You have all these things that are already in your toolbox. Don't be afraid to incorporate some of those things that you already do into our platform. That's absolutely okay. We're not meant to be a script, okay? We're meant to be a tool. Speaking of tools, if you're using the elementary binder, I want to let you know, this is only in the elementary binders, ladies and gentlemen. If you go in the teacher support section and you click on that and you scroll to the very bottom, there's something that we have created called document task cards. Again, these are only in the elementary binder. And if you click on that, there are just additional tasks or just other, I call them inquiry stations, but other things you can do with the kids with that document. So maybe you're pulling a group and you just want to go about document analysis in a different way, or you want the kids to do, some sort of collaborative work in breakout rooms. You can take what's in these task cards and put it on your document. So let me jump to the Jamestown DBQ. Oops, went too far. Let me scroll down. So for document D, the one we haven't looked at yet, here are some additional directions or additional tasks that the kids can do. I can copy these, and next time I go to, my, when I'm planning, I could add those directions. Obviously, I'm not in teacher markup mode right now, so this wouldn't transfer over to the kids' pages. But I can put those directions right on the page. So you have some other ideas and options for small groups, just anything else that you want to do with these documents. And I want to remind everybody again that that's only in the elementary binders. And they're at the section where it says document task cards, just by going to teacher support. And those tasks can just be put right into the documents. and they're just another tool. So that is step 4, ladies and gentlemen, right? It is going through these documents, and we only looked at 3, and we didn't really look at it in close detail. But in this particular chart, the kids are going to see some other reasons why the Jamestown settlers died. In particular, they could not get along with the people who already lived there, right? There were already Native Americans living there. It was their land. They came over. And they couldn't get along very well with them. So another reason. So by this point, they have 3 very clear reasons. So they're ready to move on to step 5 and step 6, right? They're ready to do something with all the learning that they've had. Again, maybe like for this, I don't want to go here just yet. Hold on. So maybe the first time you do a DBQ, you stop here and you say, guys, great job tackling these documents. You did a lot of great work. Here is a discussion board. Write me like a quick little paragraph on what you think of the Jamestown settlers. I taught this lesson with a group of 5th graders in the spring, and what we did was we did a flip grid. They had to make a 90-second video telling me why they thought the Jamestown colonists died. So again, your end task, the first time especially, may not be an essay. But if you choose to write an essay, I want to let you know you have a lot of supports available to you. But don't be afraid to do something else for that first DBQ.
Yeah, it's a great point, Amalia. It's one of the, Ryan showed early on a document that Russ and I worked on for digital products, like backpack artifacts that you can create, and Flipgrid was on that for, for argumentation piece. So it'd be a great example for kids to use.
Absolutely. It's so easy to use. I'm absolutely obsessed with Flipgrid right now, even for professional learning, just to share ideas with each other as educators. So it's just a great way to just ease into, formulating their arguments.
And it goes back to something else that Russ and I were showing. A lot of this obviously lives in DBQ online, but you could easily add that as an assignment back into your Google Classroom if you wanted to do something like that with your students.
Exactly. And you can, there's just so much you could do with this, right? We can't have and when we do a live training or a live instruction with DBQs, my kids would always debate everything. We would do it like a Socrative seminar, or we would have an actual debate. And it's hard to do that virtually, but if you have them, share their claim on Flipgrid through video, and you could have, the class or a couple of classmates comment on them, you can still have that dialogue between students, right? Students agreeing and building on people's claims, or, cordially disagreeing with their claim and backing up with why they think what they think. So again, bring your creativity to it. It's not a problem. We're not a script. But I want to mention, though, if you choose to write the essay, that's where steps 5 and 6 comes in. It helps the kids formulate or generate their thesis, and step 6 is all about writing. When I made this lesson, I turned on every scaffold I could possibly turn on. So one of the things I turned on is the essay builder. You do not have to use the essay builder by any means, ladies and gentlemen, but it's there for scaffolding if you need it. A lot of teachers like to use the essay builder the first time they do an essay with their kids, and then a lot of kids just were like, we're good, we get it, just give us the essay outline. And then some kids are like, I need it, and you can kind of differentiate. So the essay builder takes step 5 and step 6 and kind of combines it together. So here is the first page of it, and step 5 of the DBQ method is coming back to the buckets, as Chip mentioned. So now the kids do not just have reason 1, reason 2, reason 3. They have clear reasons. You know, one was a drought. The second was the lack of settler skills. If I can spell that. And the second one was conflicts with the Native Americans. Let me capitalize that, sorry. Okay. But what happens when you're using the essay builder is whatever you put as the bucket titles, it automatically transfers over to that chicken foot that Chip showed you all earlier. And the chicken foot is how we generate a thesis. So here we are, we have our 3 reasons. And what we do here at the stem of the chicken foot is we take the essential question and we reword it. So if our question is, why did the Jamestown settlers die? Then our stem is, Jamestown settlers died because. It's that simple. Now, is this a fantastic, super sophisticated thesis? No, but it's a clear claim. So here, my kids have a claim now. Jamestown settlers died because of a drought, the lack of settler skills, and conflicts with the Native Americans. It's that simple. And if you're writing the essay, well, here's your roadmap. Body paragraph 1, body paragraph 2, body paragraph 3. So now they know exactly what to write in each body paragraph, and they have a clear claim to to carry that paper over. So that, ladies and gentlemen, is the first part of the essay builder. Sorry, I interrupted someone.
No, that's okay, Molly. I was just, I love this part of that to help students kind of guide their way into making that kind of claim. But the tech side of me was noticing the bottom right corner of that that continually says saved all the time, so that students don't have to worry about losing their work in here. If you go back and edit, I guess James Settlers died because it'll show that.
Absolutely. It's really good about auto saving because that's the worst, right? When you're a kid, you work really hard and your work's gone. So, or a teacher. So absolutely. And speaking of the tech side, what I also really love about the essay builder and just DBQ Online in general is the organization part of it. When I taught 5th grade, and often I had some kiddos who were notorious for losing stuff. My own daughter, who's in 6th grade, when she has a backpack, I'm afraid to open it, right? But what's nice about this is all their work is in one spot. I don't have to worry about document B being in their locker or their desk or stuck to their shoe. I can click on it and they can go see exactly what they have done. They can refer back to their work. So it's right there in one spot for them. And they can very, kinesthetically drag and drop the documents that supports each bucket. So when it's time to write, they know exactly which document they need to refer to. And document D actually had some information about the drought as well. So they can do that. And then they move on to the next page. And notice now, the documents are organized differently. They're organized by the big idea or by that bucket. So they know in their first body paragraph, they need to use information from document A and D. And their second paragraph from document B, because they already dragged and dropped it. So it just really helps kids who need this kind of structure with writing have it. That way they can build their confidence. And then when you take the scaffolds off, the training wheels off, they can continue to flourish with their writing. So that's the essay builder. And in this page, they're going to start extracting their relevant evidence to go in their essay. And in the next page, they start writing their outline. Now, I turn on that guided essay also, which is the sentence starters. Again, I turn on every single scaffold under the sun. You can shut some of these things off, educators. But here, because I turned the guided essay on, I even give my kids sentence starters to help their writing. So let me jump to a body paragraph real quick. Here's body paragraph 1. So our baby thesis is our subclaim, right? So one major cause of death in Jamestown was, I can copy that sentence starter and I can say, was the lack of Now, I chose to talk about the settler skills in my first paragraph. So when I'm going to go into evidence, I'm going to change that. It's not document B. I'm not going to use this sentence. I might use something else. I might say something like, the chart in document B six governors. It's called governors. Just put leaders. That's easier to spell. 0 farmers and 1 woman. Right? That's clear evidence right from the chart. So then they can build their argument. Well, why is that important? Right? Maybe I might say something like, farmers are needed to grow food. And without food, I'm not gonna write like a 5th grader, you die, or something like that, right? But the kids can start, piecing together their paper with some help if they need it. But what I love about this is once they start building their outline, they can click this build paragraph button, and it takes everything in their outline and puts it into that paragraph, right? Obviously, I only typed a few things. They would have more. And I would just continue that process. Paragraph 2, paragraph 3. And when I'm all done and all this is full, I select build essay and everything goes together in one essay in that order. So I only did a one section, so not everything's here. But imagine if your kids are working through this, right? They start their outlining and then they can take what's in their outline and put it together in an essay, add their voice, add their transition, and they have a paper. They have a decent paper, right? It's not this mysterious paper because they understand the thinking behind each step. So ladies and gentlemen, again, not something you have to use the essay builder or the guided essay, which are those sentence starters, but if your kids need the support, just know that it is there. And when they're finished, they can send their essay right to the teacher, or they can, and I'm going to show you this again in a minute, or they can export their essay into a very simple Word document. Let me see if this pops up. There you go. Which they can convert to a Google Doc or copy and paste into a Google Doc, and they can submit it to you that way. But I do want to let you know that you have some options when it comes to collecting this essay. I'll show you in a few minutes what send to teacher will look like. But again, know that you can export the work out also. But that was my very, very long-winded, I apologize for my long-windedness, explanation of the 6-step method in action, but also what it might look like in a remote environment.
Molly, this is fantastic, and I know you've got more to sort of show us here, but the idea that students are building this over time, one of the things that we're looking at again is what's happening synchronously and what's happening asynchronously. And I can see being able to, work with documents, right, and with writing during that synchronous time, because that is the skill component where we need a more knowledgeable other for you Vygotsky fans in the audience, right? And that this is one way where you can sort of show students how to do this, why that thinking is there, and then push that right off into their asynchronous learning, right? So that they're then populating these elements that you could then return to and be able to talk about in your classroom setting, right? So I think it's very important to think about as you're going through what's happening synchronously, what's happening asynchronously, right, for that virtual option.
Yep, and I agree, Ryan. And Amali in the chat, Rebecca, who is my wonderful partner, said that the builder can be helpful for new writers, a helpful way to model the thinking and structures for building claims and arguments, which is really at the core of what we want students to do. And Elaine also on our team says this is huge for those students who need prompting and queuing accommodation. So it just, I mean, DBQ and all these tools just had so many different students who have various needs. So it's really good stuff.
Thank you. Yes, the hardest part is that argument, right? Sometimes kids make a claim, then they back it up with evidence, but they don't know how to extend it. What do I do next? So we hope that sometimes those sentence starters in the argument section will help the kids with that, right? How do I start an argument? Can I use an if and then statement? Like, how do I do it? So we hope that helps. But again, that's just a deep dive into the 6-step method and using DBQ online with your kids remotely. Before I go into managing student work, giving feedback, and what the student side looks like, I want to point out that I didn't show you how to change a draft lesson into a live lesson. The way you do that is you go back to your settings icon, and you go back to, you click on edit, and it's going to take you back to that page, right, where you built the lesson. And you're just going to scroll down. And this time, instead of selecting save, you're just going to select save and assign. And now that lesson is live for the kids. Okay? And again, you have these sample essays, as I mentioned earlier. These sample essays are they're automatically off. So when you want to show it to a kid, you're just going to turn it on, and you can control when you shut that off. But what's nice is if you want to show the kids what a good sample, like an example of writing looks like, you have writing already done for you. So I can show this to my kids and say, look guys, I want you to highlight how this particular author cited their source. I want you to highlight in blue the subclaims in this body paragraph. Did you start your body paragraphs with a subclaim? So it's a way to model good writing, but you have these here also, just an FYI. And you can always just keep it off and just, show it on your screen. That way the kids they can't do too many things with it either. But you typically know when they copied your sample essay. So I wanted to show you all that. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to log off this account, and I'm going to actually log in to my real account and show you a couple of other things dealing with the student side of things. So I'm back in a different teacher account, my real teacher account. Couple things. Here is a class where I have actual students. I want to show you when I have my students in my class already. You can see their names. You can see the kids who are in your class. And again, remember that you give the kids the class code, and that's how they join your class. I built a class for today, just JCPS 1020 class, and here is the class code. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to log into this class as a student, so you see what your students would also see. This particular lesson is on Harriet Tubman. Our question for this one is, what was her greatest achievement? Because being a conductor of the Underground Railroad is just one part of her amazing, amazing life. So I'm going to log back out and log in as a kid. So again, remember, your kids are going to log in through Clever. There's no extra usernames or passwords or anything like that. I'm just using a fake account to pretend to be a kid for right now. So when your kids log in through Clever, the very first time they log in, they're going to see a screen that looks like this. Okay, this is the first time they log in, and it'll prompt them, hey, you need a class code. So what you have to do is share that class code with them, whether it's in a live synchronous session and you walk them through it, or you put that code in your Google Classroom, maybe both. So they're going to put that code in their little box here. They're going to select join class, and then they're in, right? They see JCPS 1020, the class I made for today, and that lesson. Sometimes kids get confused because they still see this ready to join my class box. That's always going to be there because a lot of our students use DBQs for social studies and ELA, sometimes for like intervention groups with a special ed teacher, like that too. So they're in multiple classes. So that's why this is always going to be there. So the student dashboard, it's a lot cleaner than what your teacher dashboard is. They just see the assignments. They're going to click on view. But notice they see exactly what we saw earlier, right? If I had the instructor markups in there, they would see that. They have the audio, right? They have the all the annotation tools. So nothing has changed. The only thing that has changed is those teacher notes are gone, right? They just see what they need to see, which are the documents and any of your directions if you gave them directions. So as the student, I can, again, annotate. I can take notes. I can answer questions. I'm just going to write something here real quick just so I can show you how quickly you can see student work. Let me just put sample student work 1020 so you know I'm doing this live, right? Just gonna randomly write some things here. So here I am as this kid working on my page, okay? As the student, again, I have text boxes that I can type in, all that good stuff. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna log out as a kid and I'm gonna log back in me as the teacher. So let me go back to that class where I was earlier. I'm gonna go to my roster. See, now there's one kid because I joined in as a kid. One thing I want to point out to you is every time you create a lesson, you have a manage button. So when I click on this manage button, what's really cool is I can see that particular student, their student's work, as well as their essay if they wrote their essay. So when I click on view unit, now what I'm seeing is I'm seeing their page, right? So here's user 20, this mock kid that I signed up as a few minutes ago. Let me jump to that background page where I was working. And there you go. There's all that work that I just did. It's that quick. So if I'm doing live instruction, I can literally see what they're doing in real time. And it's a wonderful tool because when they're, I truly believe proximity. I mean, it's an important tool in management, right? When we're there, not so in a threatening way, but when you stand by kids and you check over their shoulder and you say, "Yeah, buddy, good job, you're on the right track," it encourages them. But for some kids, knowing you're actually there will help them stay motivated in that task. So you can literally see what the kids are doing in real time. And what's also nice is you can give the kids feedback, whether it's through a sticker. You can type not the wrong one. You can write feedback. Whatever you want to write, you can do that. But what's also really neat is with DBQ Online, all the things that we say all the time, over and over and over, you can preload. That way you can give feedback just a little bit faster when you're working with your kids, just to save yourself a little bit of time. So I want to let you know that this tool is available to you. Like right now with DBQ Online, the ability to see what the kids are doing and give them feedback in real time. So let me log out, and I'm going to log back in as that kid.
Molly, those feedback features are fantastic. And I mean, who doesn't love a sticker? My laptop is covered with them right now. So.
Oh, that's awesome. Sometimes I worry that, sometimes kids get too cool, but they're not. They love stickers. I love stickers.
You're never too cool for stickers, ever.
So here I'm back logged in as that mock student. So let me go back to that background page. And there you go. There's all that feedback, ladies and gentlemen. It's there. So nice feature to have, and it is fast. It auto-populates right away. Now, as the student, I can never remove anything, right? But what I can do is if I want my white space back to work and, write some margin notes, I can go up to layers and I can go ahead and just turn the teacher feedback off, just kind of hide them. So now all I see is my work, but I can't delete them. When I want to see what my teacher said, I can bring them back. And that's only there if you need that white space and you need that clutter-free page for your own peace of mind. I know I get a little nervous when I don't have enough white space on my page. So that's just there for your students also. They can hide some of the things that they have. So that's something I wanted to show you. I'm going to show you a video in just a second that will show the feedback feature on the essay a little bit better. Then that way I don't have to type essays and go back and forth. I think the video will do a good job. So before I do that, Ryan, have I missed anything so far on the online platform? I know you've sat through this training probably more often than you wanted to.
No, I think that's good, and I think one of the things I've noticed that will happen, and I know we'll have another video of this. This is one part in particular that our staff with social studies can come out and help schools do. Right? I've got it more down to a science now, so I can go through it in about 30 minutes, right? And then I go through it again in like 10 minutes, and then go through it again in like 5 minutes, right? So it's a very quick kind of like 45-minute process that you get to see it 3 times. But I think that like anything, just getting in and sort of playing around with it, it's a pretty fail-proof system, to be honest with you, right? So, just being able to get the only tricky thing, right, is making sure that little orange box appears, right, and that's where the changes are being made so that folks can see it.
Exactly, that's so important, and I think that's probably like one of the things you guys can do. Let me actually show you how to do that. If you ever need help, something's not working right, you can go up to support and contact our support. I also shared the email with you earlier. It's just support@dbqproject.com. And one of the we get so many tickets daily, and the ticket says, my markups aren't showing up for my kids. And as Ryan said, it's because you're not in instructor markup mode. So it's really important that when you are marking up a lesson, then you want those markups to transfer to the students' pages, that you are in this instructor markup mode, and you see that little yellow box is lit. That's the only part that could be a little bit confusing. But I want to make sure you guys are aware of that. And if you have a lesson that you have marked up and you love it, and you want to keep it for another year, again, in that little sprocket, you can save it as a template, and that way you can use it year after year, and those markups stay when the platform gets purged with data during the summer. Same thing, if you have a lesson that you like and you want to use it for other classes, maybe you teach American history 3 times, or you want to duplicate the lesson and just change the differentiation for another group, you can copy it to other classes as well. So you have some, features there to help also, just to let you all know. So if there isn't anything else, what I want to do next is just kind of go over the feedback feature just a little bit deeper, and then we'll start wrapping up.
Hey there. In this video, Rebecca and I are going to demonstrate how to use our dynamic, interactive feedback tools. Whether you're home grading, working in a distance learning situation, or you're in class, we think they'll be a big help.
Okay, so to start, you'll see we have 2 kinds of feedback: unit feedback and essay feedback.
The unit feedback focuses on students' work leading up to, but not including the essay. Their reading of the background essay, their document analyses, their bucketing and chicken footing, and their outlining. The essay feedback button only views and allows you to comment on the final essay.
You'll see that we've preloaded a bunch of comments. You can remove these, you can edit and rewrite them, or you can add and save your own comments.
This way, you don't have to retype the same comment every time it arises.
We've also preloaded stickers. When your students have completed a step and you're ready to provide feedback, go to your class. Find the assignment and click on Manage.
That puts you in the Manage page. You'll see the assignment title, the number of students, and down here, each student listed individually. For her Texas history class, Ms. Beltran has assigned a unit on Sam Houston. Right away, she wants to see how well her students understand the background essay and the driving question that they'll be answering.
She starts with her student Ani, clicking on View Unit and then the background essay page. Responding to Ani's work, she can now type her own comments, use the preloaded custom comments, and attach stickers as she sees fit.
When Ms. Beltran is ready to move on to another student, she clicks on Next Student here, or by clicking on a particular student. Either way, she is taken to the same page in the next student's unit. In this way, a teacher can give feedback and view every student's background essay pages, for example, or their document A analysis.
This is especially helpful if a teacher is assessing a particular skill like map reading or dealing with point of view and sourcing.
On the student's end, Ani can click View and see if her teacher has provided feedback. She cannot delete or even move Ms. Beltran's comments, but she can turn off her teacher's feedback and then turn it back on again. So for Ani and all of her students, Ms. Beltran can provide feedback throughout the unit with the background essay and the document analyses. And if she has included our essay builder in her initial assignment setup, she can also follow students as they work from tab to tab, from bucketing to chicken footing, extracting evidence, and outlining their essays.
On the Manage page, when the button is orange...
Wait, that's red. That's totally red.
Anyway, when it's not blue, it means a student or students have turned in their essay draft. Clicking on it, she scrolls down and sees who has submitted a draft and when.
This empty blue circle here indicates that their essays need feedback. When she clicks on the orange View Essay button, she is automatically in essay feedback mode. The commenting tools on the essay are a bit different from the rest of the unit.
To add a comment, Ms. Beltran first has to select then she clicks Add Comment, and a comment box opens up on the right.
She can either type her comment or use one of the preloaded comments. Either way, these can be color-coded. Ms. Beltran likes to give each comment its own color to help students more easily track them. When she's done commenting on a student's draft, she can either click Feedback Complete or Send to Student. With the first, the students won't get her feedback until Ms. Beltran goes to the Manage page and clicks Send All Essay Feedback. Doing it this way allows Ms. Beltran to return her feedback to all of her students at the same time.
Down here, she can see whether and when she has provided feedback.
This allows her to collect a student's essay.
This, that a student needs feedback.
And this, that feedback has been given.
These get updated with each round of revision.
Just want to add that the collect student essay is a new feature. So this is, for example, before we had this feature, educators always had to wait until a student submitted an essay to them, right? Whether it's by exporting or by pressing that button, Send to Teacher. This way, you don't have to wait. Maybe you have a kid who forgot, or maybe it's deadline and you want to get the assignments. So you have the power to kind of take the essay if it hasn't been submitted. So that's why that button is there now. It was something that we added on this summer.
and feedback.
Up here, she can export all of the essays, letting her grade them in Canvas, Schoology, Google Classroom, or whatever learning platform her school uses. With this, she can collect all the essays at one time. Here, she can send all essay feedback at once.
And right here, she can close the assignment, which turns off the ability for students to be able to send more essays. To reopen the assignment, she can still click Open next to each student's name.
Let's take a look at another student's essay. This is Sophie's first draft, and Ms. Beltran wants to give her feedback so Sophie can make revisions before submitting the essay for her final grade. After highlighting a word or passage, Ms. Beltran clicks Add Comment, using our preloaded comments or simply typing something here. When she finishes giving Sophie feedback, she clicks here or here and moves on to another student.
But let's say Ms. Beltran wants Sophie to go back and give the document a closer look.
To do that, she goes down here to the taskbar and clicks on Unit Feedback.
After adding a comment, she can easily return to the essay.
A couple things to note. After you've sent feedback and you're waiting for a student to revise her essay, you're not going to be able to add comments to the prior version. When you try to highlight a section, like I'm doing here, no comment box appears.
You have to wait for the student to revise her essay and then click over to version 2. And here you can make comments.
The second thing to note is that whatever version you're in, or even if you're in the rubric, clicking on a student's name here in the floating drop-down box doesn't mean or do anything. This is just a checklist.
However, you can use this list to scroll down and click over to another student.
Returning to the assignment page, she can again see where the work stands for the whole class. So some of her students have received feedback. For others, Ms. Beltran has provided feedback but not sent it, so she clicks here and those blue buttons turn orange. If she hasn't given a student feedback, maybe she has forgotten or the student has been absent.
So I'm going to go ahead and stop it there. It's pretty straightforward, but I wanted you to see how easily you can send work back to a kid, ask for revision, and have them send it back to you with those revisions. I know, especially during this time period, we want kids to do well, right? And to give them an opportunity to quickly fix something and give it back to you for a better, to show that they understood it. I think that's a really valuable tool. And I know my personal students they hate redoing things over, but with this, they just fix the part that needs to be fixed and they can submit it back, pretty easily. So just want to let you know that you have this manage feature for the writing as well. So that's the last
She'll see this empty.
Excuse me, that's the last thing I wanted to show you before we start wrapping up. So before we stop for question and answers, I showed you guys how we made a DBQ lesson and we modified it to use with our classroom or kids who are in a remote environment. So I hope this particular slide is useful for you when you're planning your first lesson. I always like to follow these steps, make sure my class is created, and consider how I'm going to share that class code. Right? It's really important to get those kids in your class right away so you can start differentiating the assignments for different kids, right? Without having them in the roster, you can't do that. So you want them to join your class right away. So what we recommend when you're planning for your first assignment is you start thinking about, well, which version do I want to use, EV or CV? Let's make sure we use at least 2 sources, right? Because that corroboration piece is vital. So I would, you can modify one of our DBQs from 4 documents to 2. That's totally fine. But I would steer away from 1, okay? But we recommend maybe 2 for the first one. What additional supports do you want to turn on? Do you want to turn on that audio, or do you want to turn on the essay builder if they're writing a whole essay? That kind of thing. And the other two things you want to keep in mind is adding those instructor markup. What directions do you want to add onto the pages? Are there disciplinary literacy prompts that you want to add for sourcing or close reading into those documents? So add those. One of the other things you want to consider too is what's your end product? Is it a Flipgrid? Is it a quick write? Is it a discussion board? Is it an essay? That kind of thing. And communicate that with your students very clearly. If they're not writing the essay, well, take the essay page away when you're making that assignment. To save yourself some time giving feedback before you make your first lesson live, I would also add custom comments to your DBQ online platform. Remember, the video said this too. It already comes with some comments built in. You can keep them, edit them, or delete the ones that are there. But these are just some things to think about as you are planning for your first lesson. Ryan, is there anything you want to add about that?
No, I think that's spot on, right? I mean, part of this is that, like any other tool, this is one way of sort of moving forward, right? Again, this is an optional piece that we're trying to sort of solidify across the district here, right? Both in and virtual. So what I would suggest is just to reiterate what you suggested is to start small, right? Students need to have, this is one more platform students are going to have to figure out, right? We know that's a problem. So being able to start small, perfect, right? Just being able to get access to those sources, right? That's what we sort of need, and this provides a way of scaffolding those sources and then making those sources accessible, as we talked about earlier. So no, I think it's spot on.
Great. I know some teachers, just to get the kids logged onto the system, may just do just one passage. Let's just look at this little hook exercise real quick. Let's just get you logged in. And then afterwards, they start making their next lesson just to get them rostered into their class. So yeah, start small and then build on it every DBQ, right? Think about what instruction, what are you trying to model? Are you doing something with particular type of sources? Are you looking at maybe speeches? Are you looking at sourcing in particular this time? So just kind of pick something like your instructional focus and build on each DBQ. So before I hand you all back over to your curriculum team, I just want to remind you again that you have tons of support from us, including screencasts, webinars, all those wonderful things. They are here on the DBQ online platform. We have 30-minute webinars happening every day. So if you want just a refresher with a live person, of course your curriculum team is available. We have them happening every day too that are open to anyone in the country. So you have that. You have all these PD videos, which I didn't show you earlier, but we have videos for all of our 6 steps. So if you want to see the hook exercise, the background essay in a little bit more detail, you have those videos. These are about 5 to 10 minutes long. And then you have skill builder videos. Ladies and gentlemen, I absolutely love these, but they're just great videos for different skills. Like what if you have a poem as a document? How do you teach kids to interpret a poem? How do you teach kids to read charts? So check these out, just great tools. And as I mentioned before, we have a support section too, where you have all these screencasts for you. For example, here in the annotation basics, you have little videos on annotations, okay? There are FAQs. Like one of the things we get asked all the time is, Amali, can I add my co-teacher to my class? So in the FAQs, there are little videos for that. I'm not going to show you the whole thing.
Can I add another teacher to my class?
Okay, so you've created a class and perhaps have a couple of assignments. Click here on Secondary Instructor. Next, click Invite.
So again, ladies and gentlemen, you have all these resources on our end, in addition to all the amazing support that your team, your curriculum team has for you also. So once again, if you have any questions at all, I hope you're feeling empowered by the support that you have. But if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us as well. And with that, thank you for your time. Good luck this year. And I'm going to hand you all back over to your team.
Wow, thanks, Amali. That was fantastic. Really appreciate you sharing and walking us through all those features of the DBQ Online. It was great information for everybody. I think Kelly Graybill has been watching and joining us throughout this whole session and asked a really great question about, I think he was kind of worried about the using this for early primary, and Rebecca answered his question in the chat, and just wanted to see if you all had any thoughts beyond what Rebecca said, which was, you know, obviously to use the customization features and the markup tools. But Ryan or Amali, do you all have any thoughts on early primary and DBQ?
Yeah, I'll say this is that I know that Amali, and this is sort of a plug, I think, for the future. I know that DBQ is working on a K3 binder or maybe K2 binder. And what we know is that what's present is still going to be problematic. So Kelly is absolutely right about looking at that early bit there. One of the things that we're trying to do with the virtual platform is really lean on these two resources, right? Both DBQ and SHAG, which are never really intended for that early primary audience. That doesn't mean that, you know, just like any kind of platform, there's always some hole in it, right? There's always some shortcoming. And I think that one of the elements that we'll end up doing with our K4 friends in particular is to continue to build out our curricular framework, being able to vet those lessons and understanding that can be a part of that. So there's no good answer here. So I'm just going to be honest and say that, you know, unless Amali has a better solution, the thing that Rebecca's already suggested is dead on, right? Being able to make sure that even if we're just looking at, like, you can change the question, right? You can change the prompt. You can, you know, you can eliminate some of the sources. So even just in the early audience, and we're more than happy to help do that piece, right? So if we need to have some kind of customization where Rebecca, Vincent, and I, or even Amali can help join, we'll make that happen for our primary folks.
Well, thanks for elaborating on that, Ryan. And I just also, you know, in addition to thanking Amali for handling the bulk of that presentation, which was just fabulous, I want to say thank you to Rebecca and Vincent, who have been handling the chat for us today, and Russ for helping out as well in there, and the rest of my team. So really great session. I think that was about it, unless there was anything else, Ryan, that you wanted to add. I was just going to show everybody the virtual learning the schedule for the rest of the day, the rest of the week before we signed off for lunch.
Yeah, Rebecca's going to add next steps.
Thanks, Ryan, and thanks, Jack. And Molly, thank you so much for the tutorial that you've given us and just giving us so much to look at and something to think about. And we are excited about DBQ's opportunity to provide support for teachers and for students to develop claims and arguments and to practice the much needed sourcing that our students need to do, the skills they need to do that well as citizens. So for the future, we will have some office hours that are coming because Amali and other instructors are going to be providing opportunities to be thought partners and troubleshooters in thinking about how you're implementing DBQ in your classroom. We're also going to be setting up a series of professional learning opportunities to help dig deeper into that 6-step method and think about how you're using that within the classroom, how you can scaffold that, and how you can help use our tools, such as the formative performance task rubric and the source analysis tool, to help deepen and go further with those sources to practice those skills that students desperately are going to need to develop. So we're very excited about our future with DBQ and also possibly into next school year. So I'm very excited that I get to hang out with Amali and the staff at DBQ a lot more. So if you have questions or you need any help If you need a thought partner, please feel free to email any of us at all. The 4 of us are here to help and help to support the use of DBQ to build those skills.